A Nerd podcast. Today we got a special guest, the fellow nerd, as he's known on TikTok, Illuminerdy, as he's known on YouTube. Really happy to have this guy on. He's got great content talking about comics. He has the most epic omnibus collection I've ever seen. I'm crazy jealous, and the content's awesome. He very responsive. You could comment this guy, and he will answer your questions all the time. I remember the first time I did it, the dude answered in like a day or two, and always very valuable information. So he's interactive, good content. Check him out. And today we're talking about comic book events, Marvel and DC, comic book eras, covering maybe a whole few years of DC or Marvel, and then all kinds of stuff, maybe some movies, some fun little philosophical questions like you find in our nerd therapy episodes. And you can find us, Why So Sidious, at Why So Sidious Pod, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, X. Lately, we've been dropping. We have a Spider-Man Kraven's Last Hunt comic review. We have Comic Talk 2 featuring Kurono Comics. We talked about Batman Rogues, some of their comics, and then Spider-Man comics as a whole. Of course, we have our Weekend Geeks up, talking about recent nerd news, and we're going to be dropping the Dune Prophecy review of episode 1 and 2 soon. And then later we'll keep covering Dune Prophecy. We'll keep our Weekend Geeks coming. All the good stuff. So let's jump in. Illuminerdy.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining, man. What got you into comics in the first place and creating content on comics?
Um, so what got me into comics was I didn't read very good, believe it or not. And my brother was he didn't read very well, and his way of getting to read better through my dad was comic books, because what better way is there to like influence a kid to read than to have these awesome stories with superheroes? So my brother actually did the same thing that my dad did for him and initiated me into comics. So I started reading comics to learn to read pretty much and gain better reading comprehension and all of that good stuff. But yeah, I've been into comics since I was 9 years old. So that was the first love of my life. I did comics before movies, before cartoons, before video games, before anything. It's always been comics. And then as far as content goes, I've always wanted to be like a YouTuber or a streamer or something. I never knew if it was going to be video game oriented, because I really like video games, or comic book. But I recently got into, or not recently, but recently in my career of comics, got into the collected editions world, and started doing content on that and recollecting my collection, and now these overpriced books instead. So that's
You
my
did.
origin story, if you will.
Yeah, I love it. So your parents were big into comics, or your dad was?
My dad was, yeah, my dad was really big into art. Like, even I remember being a kid, he would just pull out a piece of paper and draw his interpretation of Goku or Superman or whatever it be, and he just always liked that side of like nerdom, just art in general. So him getting my brother into it. My brother was really big into comics for a long time. Has like a Superman tattoo on his arm, all kinds of stuff. But so he got me into comics to help me read. But it's kind of, I guess, a hierarchy of jumping on points
Right.
where my dad got my brother and my brother got me into comics.
You bring up Goku and Superman. Who wins this fight?
You know, the crazy thing about that, I have been debating that for years. Me and my brother, so before we even cared about YouTube, before YouTube was what it is today, it was a place where we would go to pretty much argue about fandom, who's going to win between Batman and Black Panther, whatever it may be. But Superman and Goku, we argued about for years and years and years. I am Team Superman. He's Team Superman. I don't think Goku can't win, but I think it's a no brainer that Superman always is the safe choice of who would win that battle.
I'm on the Goku side, I think. And I'll tell you
Really?
why. I'll tell you why. Well, instant transmission's a big one. the training is a big one for me. Like he's a martial artist from the beginning of his life, big time. Um, well, I don't even like to go past Dragon Ball Z. I don't want to bring up Ultra Instinct or anything like that because
Yeah,
I that's my Dragon Ball Z is Z. It stops after Z. It stops
yep.
with Boo, and but I still think Super Saiyan 3 is better than Superman. I think it's stronger, and I think Goku's faster, and he has martial arts skills, and he's willing to kill. I think he would. What does Superman do against a spirit bomb? I guess I don't know, but at the same time, it's Superman probably wouldn't let him sit there for 5 hours growing a spirit bomb. So it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. The actual catch with the spirit bomb is it only affects those that aren't pure of heart. So Superman would be able to
Oh,
catch it and actually throw it back. So
brutal.
yeah. So I mean, it gets interesting, but I do agree with you that Dragon Ball Z needs to be the cutting off point, and we can't bring into like the conversation of Superman 1 million or anything like that because then it like gets to like absurd fandoms where
Yeah, it's
it's
just
just so
ridiculous.
stupid at that
It's
point.
just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So how about we start with some of these what we like to call nerd therapy questions because we do like full episodes with all kinds of questions like these.
That's sick.
They're a lot. They can be a lot of fun. They can spark a lot of cool conversation. We'll see how it goes. But I got. Let's start with this one. So if Iron Man and Batman swapped places, what would Iron Man do in Gotham? Would it be better or worse?
Boy, that's a loaded one. I don't know. I feel like it would probably better because I feel like Iron Man doesn't have I feel like Iron Man would be fully okay with like putting a mind control like chip or something into the Joker's brain that turns him back into a civilized individual. Where Batman is, I mean, he's limited to just kind of beating the crap out of people and putting them into Arkham.
Yeah, exactly.
But Iron Man, I think, would be like, no, we're gonna rewire your brain with my insane technology because I don't have that level of a morality code like
Right.
Batman does.
Yeah, he's fine with killing. I'm not saying he's going to go slaughter all the villains,
No.
but he will take it to another level of desperation to stop these guys. Higher technologically wise, he is got a higher ceiling, much higher. I mean, he tried to create an army of AI robots to protect the whole world. Like that's something Batman hasn't
Yes.
really considered. I guess Brother Eye, you could say, was kind of an argument. I don't know what he was going with there before. What's their name? Like Maxwell Lord tried to take all that stuff over, but you know, he never. Yeah, he did do failsafe too. So he's actually he reaches that kind of technological height. He can try anyway, but as far as little gadgets and stuff, Iron Man, he's just little. I think more resourceful, higher technological ceiling would be willing to go farther and just his like satellites and targeting, he would monitor the whole city better. I think he would shut
Yes.
them down, and those villains don't have anywhere close to the firepower enough to meet Iron Man.
And you also look at Iron Man. I mean, Iron Man is completely okay with calling in the cavalry for help,
That
but
too.
Batman, I mean, Batman is almost very close to being against even the Bat family helping him. So, you know, Iron Man being like, I don't care if I bring in Captain America, Hawkeye, whoever he needs to bring in, while Batman has this personal vendetta against the city where he's gonna he's gonna take care of it himself and doesn't want any outside help unless he deems it, I guess, worthy. But yeah, I mean, I think Iron Man would definitely do what he had to do. Where Batman's like, I don't know. I don't know if his main objective is even to clean up Gotham fully.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
he
think it's just
enjoys
like
it too
he just
much.
has fun with it.
Yeah.
That's one of my problems. Batman's got the best comics, period, to me. He has the most good comics. He's my favorite character in some aspects, but his ideology and like his methods and like really who he is and how he does it is not anywhere close to my favorite.
No.
So best stories, most fun, movies, comics, top of the line, but the character himself, I don't know. He's kind of a goofball.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy too, like how many stories we have too, because he gets such like top talent on his books because he's
So
DC's
popular.
pride and joy. I think we all know that at this point. And it's like, man, I would really like to see some of these incredible talents and stuff, explore the psyche of, you know, Mr. Terrific or even Superman. I mean, Superman gets, I mean, he's been getting some good focus as of lately, but it's like, geez, can I get some character breakdown on other characters other than Batman? We can only hear that he's kind of unhinged, but in a good way, so many times where it's like, okay,
Right.
enough.
Even Tom Taylor, I just found out on TikTok today, he's writing Detective Comics now.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's talent right there going right back into Batman's lap. You're right.
Yep.
You gotta spread the love.
Yeah. And then you got obviously Chip Zdarsky, which his run is incredible. But I think when you work at DC, your main goal is to work on Batman. That's just like the goal is that's when you can say, "Hey, I made it at DC" when they stick you on a Batman book, and that's just the objective.
Yeah, interesting. Zadarsky. So I've only read Failsafe. It continues after that, and it's pretty good still.
I think it is. I actually thought it was very well received until yesterday. I did two live streams also, and they were talking about people really not liking Chip Zdarsky's run, and I was like, "Wait, what?" I thought it was really well received. I thought most people really enjoyed it. I liked it, but I guess there's people out there that don't like it. I don't know.
Interesting. I mean, how far is it as far as trades go? Volume one is Failsafe. I know Volume two's out, but is there a Volume three out already?
Um, I will tell you literally right. There's two hardcovers out, two volumes out. So I think a third one's coming out probably shortly at some point.
Okay. Actually, because isn't Joker Year One, Volume three?
Yep. Actually, it's at my hasn't been put away pile, which is also to my right. Yeah, Joker Year 3 is volume 3, so there's 3 volumes out. Yeah, you're
And how
correct.
how is that?
I mean, it's the same old
That's what
Joker
I'm
story,
saying. Yeah.
right? I mean, it's like, come on.
They're they're trying to dive too far into the Joker. Leave him as a mystery.
Yeah, and then they want to just keep milking that cow of, the killing joke, and it's like, okay, we've seen it, we've seen it, we've seen it. Like, just I
Yeah,
am fully okay with Joker being 100% a mystery. I kind
me
of
too.
prefer that in my taste of comic books, at least.
I'm also fine with him to continue appearing, but don't go back. Don't go back into some origin stuff like
Yeah,
a new modern Joker event. Absolutely, I'm always down.
yeah.
But we don't need to learn anything more about how he came to be.
No, absolutely not.
So we're on live, and I could post edit this, but I have an echo when I speak.
On my end,
Yeah, if I speak, I hear my echo. And I don't know if there's anything to combat that. Unless you had
okay.
headphones.
Yeah, maybe you're getting picked up on my mic.
That's probably what it is, because the volume's coming out of your computer.
You want to test it now?
I think that might have helped. Okay, and it wasn't that bad to begin with. And that is a little better. All right, let's move on to this next question. So, kind of just fun bullshitting here, but if the Justice League and the Avengers had to swap one character for a year, who would you pick and why?
Um, I would probably keep it. I don't know. Keep it a little simple and at least trade one of the big three of each, and I would probably lean towards Batman and Cap swapping because I think it would be a very interesting swap of mentality where you don't have that pessimistic and very dark and brooding,
Paranoid.
yeah, paranoid character there anymore. You have yet another hopeful character that has a different way of handling things, and then to inject Batman's paranoia into the Avengers, which I would probably say are a lot more flawed than the
Hmm.
Justice League characters when you look at, Tony Stark with obviously his alcoholism and everything that went down with Superior Iron Man,
His
um,
ego.
Hawkeye being a villain at one point and also leading the Thunderbolts, which was a team of villains. So putting him over there, I think, would be in insane tension. Where I don't even know if he would stay on the team. He would probably just go rogue and start
Yeah.
fighting everybody.
That would probably be the best part of the story. He's like, you know what, you guys are crazy. I'm gonna take you guys down.
Yeah,
Batman versus the Avengers.
yeah. Black Widow, she's an assassin. Just starts
Yeah.
beating the crap out of her. Like,
Depending on what news station you watch, you could be a terrible person in some people's eyes.
yeah,
Just a straight up villain and a hero to the other side.
yeah. I think that would be awesome to watch. Just him just start wrecking havoc, and then them looking at him like just a psychotic maniac. Like, we just gotta stop this guy dressed as a bat.
Exactly. And I would love to see them like come to terms with like he's a regular dude. How is he like he's already got half of us shut down already. He didn't even break a sweat. Like what the hell is this guy doing? Like
Yeah.
Tony Stark's a regular guy, but he has crazy armor technology. Batman is on another level of basic person, just super smart.
Yeah, he's
So
just whipping bat-shaped pieces of metal at everybody and knocking them out with it.
yeah, I think he would have a device that shuts Iron Man down pretty quick. Some kind of weird EMP attachment. Hulk and Thor, he's gonna have trouble with. I don't know what
Yeah.
he does there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at like the DC versus Marvel crossover where Hulk crossed over with Batman, he really didn't have trouble with him then, but we're looking at like a very dated comic, and Hulk
Right.
is astronomically more powerful now.
Yeah.
But I think Thor, no way you cut it. He can't stand a chance against Thor.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Because a lot of people say Batman beats anybody with prep time. Thor, though? I don't
yeah,
know. I mean, even Hulk, you can maybe say he develops a cure and hits him with a dart that pierces his skin and turns him back to Bruce Banner. Maybe you could possibly say that. But with Thor, what can you possibly do?
yeah. I don't know. And then because you have a Superman level threat or being, but then you throw in magic, the capabilities that he has. Yeah, I mean that's getting into a whole nother realm where he really, really just would be toast in 2 seconds.
Yeah, for sure. I went with switching Hulk and Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman on the Avengers. I would love to see that dynamic. I'd love to see her mythological side come to play along with Thor. I think they would all be super attracted to her because, like you said, the Avengers are flawed, and in the same sense, they're kind of more human. They kind of relate to the real world better, and I think every single male on that team would just be like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah,
marry me, please." But then she starts whipping ass, and you're like, "Holy shit!" Like, I mean, that's going to be a new gigantic powerhouse on the team, and it brings like a level of hope and love to that team that we don't have a lot of in the Avengers. Yeah, so that would be a lot of fun, and just their surprise at her savage warrior side while they're just simping over her, I think would be hilarious
yeah,
and badass. And I think Hulk on the Justice League would be just a ton of fun. I could see like a 6 issues of them just actually, I mean, probably fighting him, trying to shut him down, trying to control him. Next 6 issues, maybe coming to terms with he's not trying to be a bad person. He's just a wild animal. And Batman and Cyborg doing science, trying to figure this thing out. And then and then the next 6 issues is kind of collaboration, figuring out how to point this guy in the right direction. And Doomsday and Hulk, stuff like that. The Hulk on the Justice League, just seeing the team reactions to him as just an absolute maniac, I think would be golden.
yeah. That would be a funny dynamic. Wonder Woman would be over there with the Avengers. Everybody would be trying to get with her, trying to impress her, and then we go over to DC with Hulk, and it's just chaos.
Just chaos. Yeah, that would be fun. The DC and Marvel omnibus just dropped. You did pick that up, I saw, right?
Yeah, yep, yep.
And you've read every story in there.
Yeah, I think there was two that I had to read that I haven't read in some other collection. So I just read those, and the omnibus was mostly done at that point.
Any standouts? I know the Teen Titans X Men crossover is probably everyone's favorite, but after that, I mean, because I haven't read any of it, not a single story in the past or even after I got the omnibus, haven't read a single page. But I don't. I just want it in my collection. That seems like one of the cool. It's like one of my most prized possessions, and I haven't read it.
Yeah, yeah.
Just because it seems like historically so significant and fun. But like I looked through pages and I'm seeing like Batman and Punisher and things are getting real bloody and gory. I'm looking at I wasn't excited about Hulk versus Batman because I'm just like, come on. Superman, Spider-Man. I saw a lot of Darkseid and maybe Galactus in there. A lot of stuff looks so fun. What else stands out after Teen Titans and X-Men?
The two standouts that I really like, obviously skipping over Teen Titans X Men. The first one is the second Batman Daredevil crossover. You get to have Kingpin and Scarecrow as the rogues, because that's how they do it. They'll bring two heroes and then two villains, and that's they fight each other, then they come together and fight those villains. But obviously Kingpin is awesome for Batman. I mean, he's just a crime lord, that's super strong, super intelligent.
Right up his alley.
Yeah, but then the really cool part is Scarecrow, because Scarecrow is somebody that weaponizes fear toxin, but he's going up against the man without fear. So you get to really see that dynamic and how that plays out, and it is so epic how it plays out. It's exactly what you'd kind of expect, and it just leaves you like fist pumping for Daredevil because he's just such a BA character. I mean, he's just so awesome. And then the other standout is the um, Superman and Fantastic Four.
Oh yeah, that looked
That
awesome.
that's really good. That involves the cosmic side of Marvel. That involves Superman pretty deeply. Um, Really fun to explore that. I think that's the most modern story in there. I think that's Dan Jurgens' art on that, which is incredible. Um, and then there was one more that was really good. Of course, I can't even think of it now. But yeah, the standout, like the most critically acclaimed, is what you said though, the X Men versus Teen Titans, which a cool, um, I guess, fun fact about that is that's the first time we see Phoenix Force Scott Summers, which was way before
Interesting.
AVX.
Yeah,
But
I had no idea they had that before AVX.
yeah, pretty cool.
I'm usually not a fan of older stuff. You probably don't get where I'm coming from since you read it since you were younger, but I started reading in college and I'd never, nothing pre like 2000 spoke to me, right? There's a couple exceptions. Killing Joke, I think, was 80s. Secret Wars, the original, is actually still pretty good. But I actually just got into the new Teen Titans. Speaking of the X Men crossover by Marv Wolfman, and I actually really like the old. That was '80s Wolfman on Teen Titans and his Deathstroke run. It's like my favorite long running series from the '80s, and I think he does a great job compared to the older dialogue. It's just for a new reader like me. If I don't have the nostalgia from childhood, I find the dialogue a little corny and the art's not up to par. Obviously, after the 2000s, the art just skyrockets
Yeah.
and it's just not as believable dialogue. But the Wolfman stuff, Teen Titans, is totally solid.
Yeah, I usually don't touch comics unless they are mid 80s or above. That's my cutoff.
Yeah, the death of Gwen Stacy's really old, and I really like that. There's
Yep.
some things, but overall, not a lot of great stuff. But the Marv Wolfman Teen Titans is the Teen Titans that's with the X Men on that crossover, right?
Yes. Yep.
All right,
Yep.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Right on. Okay, next question, and I actually forgot to do an answer for this one myself. So let's see what you say. But pick one villain to give a full, genuine, and permanent redemption arc. They're a hero for the rest of comic book history future.
I'm gonna go with Mr. Freeze.
I like it.
Yeah, Mr. Freeze already very very gray as far as villains go. At least, I mean, he still does some brutal stuff, but I think that would lend awesome to Mr. Freeze in general, especially involving his wife and kind of his motives in general.
Yeah, I've always thought Mr. Freeze was such an awesome character because you could feel for that dude. His motivations are so understandable and believable.
Yeah. Yep.
I think he would fit perfectly into the Matt Reeves universe. I don't think there's a better villain you could choose for specifically that universe than Mr. Freeze. It's like that universe doesn't want to go too fantastical, so I don't think you're going to see a full blown King, or sorry, Clayface. Things that are just so monstrous and like not as
Yep.
realistic. But Mr. Freeze pushes the boundaries. The freeze technology is a lot to deal with, like as far as realistic goes, but not that much. And I think it would fit really well into Matt Reeves' universe, and you would have a villain that's not just a murderer. Like Hush is another villain people thought that can go into the Matt Reeves universe, but I'm like, the Riddler from Batman 1 has a design that looks just like Hush, first of all. Second of all, you're just going to do another murder mystery, like, oh, someone's murdered, let's figure it out, go through those steps again. So I would love Hush. I just think it'd be a repeat of the Riddler, especially since they designed the Riddler to look just like Hush. And then, but Mr. Freeze is not. It's not just going to be murder mystery. That's like
Yeah.
this dude's killing people. Batman's trying to stop him. Mr. Freeze has these very believable motivations to save his wife, and he's probably going to be robbing people because he needs the funding to develop this technology to save his wife. And Batman's going to get in his way, underestimating the freeze power, the technology, stuff like that. I just think he'd fit really well into that universe.
What do you what do you have your money on as far as who the villain would be for part two? Like, not who you want, but just who you think it's gonna be.
I want to say Mr. Freeze because I don't see any other villain fitting in that well. And it's taking place in winter. That was another big sell for me.
Yeah.
And the only other people who could fit into Reeves' universe, I think, could be Scarecrow, but I don't know if they're going to want to do another Scarecrow that soon. We just had Scarecrow in the Nolan universe. But you could, because that Scarecrow was a little off. It felt a little off.
Yeah.
And you could do a more comic accurate Scarecrow. Mad Hatter, I don't see him fitting in there, but he would fit with the whole kind of semi realistic feel of things. He would be like using these psychedelic drugs on Batman, weird stuff like that. But God, I don't. Unfortunately, I could really see Deathstroke. I wouldn't put my money on it, but he would fit fine into that universe.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Freeze makes the most sense. If I had to pick and put my money on anybody, I think it would be Mr. Freeze.
I,
What about
I
you?
would be really okay with Mr. Freeze, and you kind of have a point, and now you're making me think about how it's set in winter. So
Mm-hmm. Seems
yeah, I
appropriate.
had my money on Court of Owls.
Well, I think that's the big reveal for me about the trilogy. I would have put all my money on Court of Owls to be revealed by the end of the first Batman,
Yeah.
especially because the Riddler was exposing corruption, and even in the trailers, you heard how the Waynes were tied to this corruption, much like the
Hmm.
Court of Owls and their history, and you even saw in the trailer like one of the Batman riddles had a damn owl on it. It
Yeah.
almost seemed like they were telling you Court of Owls is coming, but then you heard nothing about it. It's like I love that movie. It's amazing. So very small amount of gripes, but as a selfish fan gripe, I'm kind of sad that they didn't reveal the Court of Owls. Instead, they revealed like Martha Wayne was a psychologically troubled person that kind of had some stuff with Arkham going on, but I'm like, damn, that was a little less climactic than like, yeah, things have been run like these clandestine group of villains have been running Gotham for like 100 years, and
Yeah.
you've been doing things you don't even know they exist, and you're trying to fight them, and you're doing pretty much nothing. They control everything, and your family was tied into it. I was looking for that the whole time, and we didn't get it, but I still think it's a possibility for the third one.
Did you watch and finish Penguin?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I know there was like some really low key possible Easter eggs to the owls, but what do you think about all that?
I I don't know. I really feel like they're building up Penguin in a big way, where
Maybe
it
he's
almost made me kind of feel like he was going to be the villain for part two,
right.
because if he goes to the level of like potentially becoming the mayor of Gotham or something, I mean, that's going to be a serious threat, and it's going to be a grounded one, which, like you said, is the Matt Reeves angle that he's applying to Batman. So, yeah, I kind of came out of that thinking that could be a possibility, which kind of fits into the winter themes too. Not as on the nose as Mr. Freeze, but
Right. Iceberg Lounge,
yeah,
penguins. Yeah, like they live in snowy areas, glaciers.
yeah. But that show blew me away. That was
Oh man, that
amazing.
was so good. I put it as a top three comic series, TV series of all time for me. Live
Oh
action,
yeah, yeah, 100%.
amazing. It's just I'm really I the death. Spoiler alert for the penguin, by the way. The death of Victor was probably the single most heartbreaking death I've seen on screen. It was so sad. It
Yeah,
was so sad. He just said, "Man, your family." He was always so loyal. He was always so nice, genuine, good dude, just kind of in the wrong place. And seeing him die was so sad. He's like, "Stop, please stop." Like, oh
yeah,
man, that broke me. And I'm like, that was genius writing because if he didn't do that, I'd be rooting for the Penguin. I would
yeah.
100% be rooting for him. So now I really want to see Batman beat the absolute shit out of this guy. I want to see him pummel him, and I would not have wanted that if he didn't kill Victor. It was genius.
Yeah, we talked about this. I did a live, I want to say like 3 weeks ago now, where we strictly talked about the Penguin, and I think that was the wake up call that everybody got that reminded them that this is about a villain. This is a
Yes.
villain's origin story, pretty much. Um, but one of the most impactful parts of that death was watching it with my wife, who's not into comics at all. Like, I think she's read like Saga, and that's about it. But we're watching and she's just like clawing at my arm the entire time, like trying to escape for Victor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this has to be a good show if she's this invested like that and has no skin in the game, knows nothing about Penguin.
Yeah. My wife was doing the same exact thing. And
Yeah.
like my parents called or something when we were watching it, and we were kind of loosely talking watching it. And then, like, as we're almost saying goodbye, like, we're seeing Victor get strangled. And we're like, wait, what the hell is going on? I had to put the phone down, rewind. We're like, there's no way this is happening. And she was just, like, heartbroken. She was pissed, too.
Yeah.
She was
Yeah.
pissed.
Great scene. Great scene there.
Great scenes. Heartbreaking, but genius writing.
Yeah, I agree.
I came up with this just as we went, but if I gave a villain a full redemption arc, I chose. I think I'm leaning towards Kingpin, and if I thought about this more, I'd probably choose someone else. But I think Kingpin would be a really fun villain to explore that dynamic with, if he, with all his power and support, say as mayor or whatever, if he came to terms with being cool with Daredevil, because in the same time they kind of have an unwritten agreement that sometimes they have this agreement where they're not going to mess with each other.
Hmm.
But if you take Kingpin and turn him into a force for good with all those resources, it's actually breaking down in my head right now because his whole thing is run off a criminal empire. So I don't know how this is going to work. But it sounds fun to have like a high level of political authority member of the good guys. And I really just love Kingpin anyway. I think it'd be fun. So I'm not going to go with a permanent redemption arc, but maybe for a year or two.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun. Every single high political authority is villain. You don't have a single like good guy like that.
Yeah.
You would need a threat to match it on the high political authority side. Yeah, I'm kind of second guessing, but I'm sorry for not coming up with an answer ahead of time.
You're good. I mean, I kind of like the off the cuff, on the fly type of stuff. So
Yeah, Kingpin would be fun, but at the same time, that takes away a really, really amazing villain
yeah,
off the.
that's a slept on villain. Like, I was so happy to see um was it when he's Devil's Reign, when we
Yeah,
actually got to see him full control, actually like strut his stuff and be the big bad man. That was epic, so epic.
I loved Devil's Reign,
I did too. Yeah.
and I really think I don't think it's going to happen. I was really hoping Spider-Man 4 was going to be kind of a Devil's Reign situation because You still have kind of the fallout of the Sokovia Accords in the movies.
Yep.
Comics, it's called superhero registration. That has never been that was mentioned in like some end credit, not end credit scenes, or maybe some opening credit in the Captain America and Winter Soldier. They did address this in some of the intro, like here's who's writing, directing, actors, and all this stuff. And the background images, they showed something about the Sokovia Accords. So still out there. And if that trickled down to something that put Kingpin into power, or not put him into power, but something that he used while he was in power. I was also hoping he bought Stark Tower, but that ended up, that
Yeah.
looks like that's Valentina.
Yeah.
I think he would play a really great role in Captain America 4. I don't think he is, but, there was also rumors that Devil's Reign was going to be part of Spider Man 4, and Daredevil's coming into the picture now. But then we hear that it's going to be possibly a little more multiversal. It's going to be released after Doomsday, before Secret Wars. So all that's kind of coming off the board for me.
Yeah. I mean, I really do think they have to lead up to, because Daredevil obviously has a multitude of incredible stories and stuff, but when you think of something that could work as a movie, since he's so street level, I mean, once we get past this first series, I think we have to kind of work to keep one upping. We have to work into Devil's Reign at some point, just to keep the stakes high. That way it's not just him beating the crap out of Kingpin in an alley every season or something like that.
That's a great point. There's nowhere else to go with Kingpin other than something like that. And you also can't just stall out and have him be a regular person in the background. Like, it's Kingpin. He's the ultimate
Yeah,
villain for the Daredevil side of things, or New York in general.
yeah, can't do that. No way.
But I have another one. I have a different one. Kingpin, whatever. Deathstroke. Full on redemption for Deathstroke, because, like I said, I'm reading Wolfman's like original Deathstroke stuff. He's really not written as a villain.
Mm-mm.
His buddy Wintergreen always talks about, like, he's actually a good person. He's a little morally gray, like he's definitely kill for money and stuff like that. But he has a heart. Like he kills some animal poachers in this, which I really love. He does have a heart. Or if an elephant, he had to. Some poachers almost got this elephant, and he put it out of its misery because he doesn't want it to suffer. Or this kid was running around, or his dad took him hunting or something, and they ended up shooting a cub, and the mom attacked the son, and I think killed the son. So Deathstroke had to go kill this lion or this tiger or whatever it was, but he came back and he's like, "This is your fault. Like, I had to kill an animal because you decided to go shoot a damn cub." All this stuff. Like, he has a heart, but
Yeah,
he is definitely written as a villain, especially to the Teen Titans. But I think that would be a lot of fun to have him be like a good guy, but more of an anti-hero, kind of Punisher,
yeah,
you know, who maybe the Justice League or the Avengers won't really fully get behind, but he works for the force of good.
yeah. And we've seen him kind of toe that line, and
Yeah.
in Christopher Priest or his New 52 run, or more recently in Deceased, the Unkillables, where he was like the main character of that series. So I think the fan base would be there, and the fan base would dig it. Um, so I think, I don't know if they'll ever do a full and permanent redemption arc for any
Yeah.
villain.
Yeah.
Legacy is
No, of
legacy at
course.
this point.
Right.
But Deathstroke would be a good shoe in, and people would buy that book for sure.
Yeah. Did you ever think Lex Luthor was making a permanent redemption arc? Because that was a long time. I mean, that was started at the beginning of New 52. It led like 5, 6 years at least into Rebirth. He was like acting like a hero. Did you ever at once think that was permanent?
No,
Yeah.
I'm like I said, I've been reading comics for so long, and it's like I don't think anything's permanent. Like I see a
except
death, and I go,
except their
okay, he's dead
lives.
for a year. He'll
Yeah,
be back.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. A Deathstroke is a character. It's like one of my most anticipated for James Gunn's DCU, which I do want to get your thoughts on a lot of this stuff eventually. Hopefully at the end if we have enough time. But Deathstroke is a character I want to see so bad done
yeah.
well in live action. We have seen him in live action in like the Arrowverse and the Titans show. Did you watch
Mhm.
that Titans show?
I think I watched season 1, I
Okay, and
think.
then Deathstroke comes season 2.
Yeah, but I've definitely watched the fights between
Yeah,
Nightwing and Deathstroke. You can't avoid that stuff. I mean,
yeah.
so I've watched that.
Why didn't you continue? Did you not like it?
Just had to cut down on like streaming and stuff, you know? Like there was a point where I had everything, and then when you look at your bank account, yeah, it's like $10 a month, but when it's $10 a month times 40
6.
streaming,
Yeah,
it gets a little expensive.
for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. See, I think Titans is not talked about enough. I actually really love that show. I'm going through it again with my wife right now. She even likes it. I think Dick Grayson is a huge standout. He's a badass.
Yeah.
It's just season 1 and 2 I really liked. After that, it got really bad. Season 3 and 4 were pretty bad.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but I really love season 1 and 2. Do you remember that one? I think it might have been the last episode or two where Dick Grayson has like a vision in fear of the Batman starting to kill off all the rogues, and
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty sick.
Yeah.
But good show, not talked about enough, in my
Didn't
opinion.
Kevin Conroy, he played Batman, and was that in that series, or am I
No,
confusing
not
it?
Kevin Conroy. It was you watch Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah.
It was Daenerys's like old fatherly figure guy, the white
Oh
dude.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, he
super
gets like
interesting.
the scale infection. It's been
Yeah,
forever since I
yeah,
watched it. Yeah.
yep.
Okay. I
Game of
remember now.
Thrones. Game of Thrones, I think, is the best TV series ever.
I agree.
It's so good. I've read the books too. I can't believe he hasn't dropped the last book yet. That dude is.
I've been looking for a series that has felt like Game of Thrones, and I just can't find that itch again. There's nothing that will scratch that want.
Right. It's perfect.
Yeah.
House of the Dragon is still pretty good, but not as good.
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the
Yeah.
same.
Especially the way they ended the last season. I'm like, come on, dude. Where's the war? We're not doing anything. All right, let's move on. I got two more questions, maybe one. We did that. All right, so would you rather have the powers of the Flash, but only 1 week out of each month? Or every day be as smart and skilled as Batman? But of course, this does not come with his wealth and his position as a person. You just have his skills and his smarts.
Uh,
The
I would go with
willpower, that's up to you.
I'd go with the second one.
Batman?
Yeah, because I am not an intelligent person, and it gets so exhausting sometimes. I'm so ready to be smart, man.
Right? Right. Uh, yeah, I had trouble with this one because, first of all, if you are a Batman and that smarts and the skills, you could pretty much accomplish anything. You could
Yeah, that too.
get whatever job you want, or you could do a lot with your life. But the Flash's power 1 week out of the month would be pretty spectacular. The things that I went to, I first thought I would go zoom out and stop human trafficking, and make sure, keep that going like once a month, make sure no one's getting trafficked as a human being. I think it's one of the worst things on the planet. Can't believe it exists.
Yeah.
And also, so I don't know how you feel about hunting. I've never hunted, but I want to. And I think there's a balance there that is actually kind of overall for the greater good because the meat industry is so corrupt. These cows and pigs are tortured their whole life, but we feed our families, we give them our dollar. Hunting, I think, is cool. I would hate killing an animal, but you kill it and then you feed your family a year's worth of meat of probably the healthiest meat possible. And really, that's a better death than a wolf tearing a deer apart, in the forest. So I would just go be the Flash. I would go pick up a damn elk, pack it, store it, freeze it. Now my family's got meat for, a year, and I would do. You don't have to do that once a year. I would get my registration. Everything's legal. It's not like I'm just gonna go kill this thing and wouldn't have fun with it. But I'm feeding my family with good meat once a month. Will be good for a year. Stop human trafficking. Those are the things I'm thinking about as Flash, and there's probably a ton of other things you could do that are really cool. So it's
Yeah.
hard. I don't know which one I would pick, but I'm gonna go ahead and pick the Flash. But I could totally see you picking the Batman route.
When you first sent that, I was like, "Oh, it's superpower is no brainer," you know. But
Yeah.
I mean, Batman is so intelligent, you know. I mean, even some of the stuff that you talked about, the corruption of the meat industry. I mean, Batman, if you have that intellect, you can expose that stuff and go after that stuff in a big way. Same with the human trafficking and all of that. I mean, you can go after and expose that. I mean, if your brain is working at a million IQ level, 24/7. I mean, I can only imagine the things you could probably accomplish, but it would be at a snail's pace compared to
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Flash.
Right. You would
Where
have
the,
to first find a way to gain influence. You'd have to build some kind of foundation of influence, social exposure, and then make your own money somehow. Might take a couple years. Then once
yeah,
you have that foundation of exposure and power and income, might take a few more years to stop that stuff. But then
yeah,
at the same time, you're also doing so many amazing things for yourself and your family along the way that it could be worth it. It's a
yeah.
tough
Where the
one.
Flash, it's like just zoom out, stop all of it in like a month, and then zoom back home and be
Yeah.
home for dinner.
Yeah. The only difference is with the Batman side of things, you could establish a permanent foundation for your family on a day to day basis. The Flash,
Yeah,
you could do big things once a month. So it's tough.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think I'll stand by my Batman intellect. I just want to. I don't know. Like I said, I'm so tired of being stupid, man. I just want to see the bigger picture of things sometimes.
Hey, you don't come across stupid when I'm looking at your videos, I'll be honest. But we all are. We all are kind of stupid, I think.
Yeah, yeah, we're all
bunch of
just cavemen,
a bunch
just
of
advanced
fucking
cavemen.
dorks. Okay. Last question, then we'll get into our favorite events of DC, Marvel, eras, all that. So if you had to pick one Marvel and one DC hero to swap their entire rogues gallery for a year, who would you choose for the most interesting kind of conflict and stories?
This was the one question that we talked about, and I knew right away. Flash's Rogue Gallery and Batman's Rogue Gallery, or not. You said Marvel and DC, right?
Right.
Never mind. Now I don't know.
I'll give you mine for a sec. You go ahead and think.
Yeah,
I was
go
trying.
for it.
I was originally trying to put the Flash as Rogue Gallery against someone on Marvel's side. 'Kay, then it made me realize that Marvel doesn't like each individual character doesn't have an amazing Rogues Gallery.
Oh, I
I think
remember mine now.
actually not a lot of characters in general do. Spider-Man and Batman have like the most prominent like solid Rogues Gallery, but like Iron Man, he's got a couple.
Yeah,
Superman, well, actually Superman has a good Rogues Gallery. Wonder Woman, just a couple. Cyborg, who I don't even know. Cyborg, like Green Lantern has a decent Rogues Gallery. Um, Black Widow and Hawkeye, not a lot of Rogues Gallery. You know what I mean? There's actually not as much Rogues Gallery like collections that are really, really solid. Daredevil actually has a good one. But I first thought Spider-Man and Batman, but I thought that'd be too easy. I figured you might say that. So I went with Thor and Superman because Thor, you got Hela, you got Surtur, you have Loki, and Dario Agger. You read the Jason Aaron Thor run, right?
yeah,
I think that's incredible. I think Dario Agger was actually a really, really solid villain. But I see like Loki on Superman's side. I think Superman's weak to magic, so he's not completely washed like you might think,
yeah,
because he does have the magic. But then like the jokes and the Superman's not going to be. He's not going to expect being fucked with so much, and Loki will probably drive him crazy. And I think that'd be a lot of fun. I think Superman would still have trouble with Hela, possibly Surtur, Malekith, Dario Agger. My point, though, since you've read that run, is Dario Agger would find a way to do the same thing he did to Thor in the comics, where it's like he's going to force you to do the right thing on the political side of things. Like when Thor was trashing all of his manufacturing facilities or whatever it was, like he sued him, which
yeah,
seems so ridiculous. And I don't buy that works for Thor, but I think that would work for Superman. Like you're gonna have to go through the system, the American system, like, and I think Superman would obey it because his
yep,
morality would be like, well, I'm part of Earth. I kind of have to do this. I'll see you at court, I guess, in my
yeah,
tuxedo. And then on the Thor side, seeing Thor go up against Doomsday, first of all, would be incredible. Zod, I think Zod is interesting because it seems like the most like serious, down down to business, tactically, strategically, like dominant and very powerful. Zod versus Thor, I think would be sick. Brainiac would literally want to collect Asgard, would want to like own Asgard in a little bottle in his room.
Yeah.
And so that would be fun, and he would outsmart Thor, so that could bring about a lot of interesting stuff. And let's see. Yeah, that's about it. I think that'd be really fun to explore there.
I do remember mine now. It was Flash and Spider-Man, and it was because they're the two like most popular rogues on Marvel and DC, where they can actually stand on their own 2 feet in a story and have a story focused on just them. You know, you look at the Rogues Gallery, Rogues Revenge, all of those storylines that focus on Flash's rogues, and then obviously the Sinister Six side of things, where we see storylines explored there. And I really think it would be a pretty even keel swap too, because you have a lot of tactical abilities when it comes to Spider-Man's side, you know, with Craven and stuff like that. And then you have the same thing on Flash's side with, I guess, more or less Captain Boomerang. I mean, he's the most, I guess, physically tactical on that side, or maybe Captain Cold too. But, and then you also have the advanced intellect of Doc Ock, and then you go over on the other side, Captain Cold. Then you have the manipulation side of things with Mirror Master on Flash's side, but then you have Mysterio on Spider-Man's side. So I think it would be such a even swap, but interesting at the same time to see how they would deal with similar but different rogues. And I think Flash would have a much better time, obviously,
Yeah, I think so
having
too.
much more powerful superpowers, but it'd be really interesting to see Spider-Man have to deal with Captain Cold and Mirror Master um, and Captain Boomerang. You know, somebody throwing boomerangs and cutting
Yeah,
all of his webs when he's
that'd be
trying to
perfect.
swing around. Yeah, I think it'd be wicked. It'd be really even too.
Yeah, I love it. Mirror Master, I don't think gets enough credit. I think he's a really cool and unique character, and it fits really well for the Flash.
Yeah, and crazy powerful. I
Yeah,
mean, we saw how powerful he was, not to mention again, but deceased unkillables. I mean, dude turned everybody because he can be anywhere. He can be
yeah,
everywhere. He can do anything he wants, and he
yeah,
turned everyone just at the snap of his fingers as soon as he was infected.
yeah. I've always, before I read Jeff Johns' Flash run, I never liked the Rogues. I thought they were so corny and so weird. And then I read Flash. It was called Rogue War,
Hmm.
and totally sold me on everything about them. Like they're all so not all of them. Like I hate the Trickster. I think he's ridiculous.
Yeah,
But like especially Mirror Master and Captain Cold really sold me on those two guys, and they actually like make sense against the Flash because the Flash again is a character I don't think makes. It's really hard to write a good Flash story because he should never get punched, he should never get shot,
yeah,
but somehow the villains end up landing shots, and you have to do it for the writing. But I'm still waiting for a genius writer to not only display the powers of the Flash in a really badass way, but also write the rogues in a way where it's like, oh, like he couldn't have done anything no matter how fast he was. I think
yeah,
that's going to take a brilliant, brilliant writer because like the character itself is written into a corner. Unless he's against the Reverse Flash or another speedster, then
yeah,
it's like, how can anyone do anything? But Captain Cold's gun like literally stops, not stops time, but it pretty much freezes molecules to the point where you can't even be fast
yep.
in that area that you shoot. Or Mirror Master, any reflection on the planet he'll come out of. So that makes sense. I think I like him a lot more now. I appreciate his rogue gallery now, but at the same time, I'm still waiting for a writer to make like the coolest Flash story ever. And I don't know if that could happen on comics. Maybe they have a better chance on the big screen, but you need a genius writer to do something very clever with these characters.
You need a writer that is great at like character development, like a a Jeff Lemire or something like that, where he can really break down the psyche and the mentality of the characters, because I think that's what will make people like them a lot more. A lot of them are very powerful, like you said, like Captain Cold's gun and stuff. But I mean, just to show how evil they are, I think that will really get the hooks in people that are interested. Like I remember what hooked me into them as one of my favorite rogues gallery was the death of the Flash, which obviously there's a
That's,
curveball to that.
there's a ton of them, yeah. But which one
Yeah.
are you talking about?
Post
In- Crisis on Infinite Earths?
no
When he dies there? No.
Infinite Crisis, where it's a death of Flash.
I'm gonna have to. I don't know if I've read this one.
Yeah.
Wait, so he returned as Barry Allen for Jeff Johns' Flash Rebirth, and then shortly after Flashpoint happened. So this happened before Jeff Johns' Barry Allen Rebirth.
So this was during the lead up to Infinite Crisis, where Superboy Prime was pulled into the Speed Force by Kid Flash, um,
Did
Kid
this take
Flash,
place?
and is it I think Jay Garrick and Wally, and I think Wally, or yeah, all three of them went in, but then a Flash came out, and then there's like a big reveal of that Flash, which if you
So
haven't read, I don't want to like say it.
was it Wally West that died?
No.
Wait, so where did Wally West go in between the Jeff Johns Flash run, in between that and the return of Barry Allen by Jeff Johns Flash Rebirth?
So
Because eventually
he
he disappeared or died or something.
Wally West was still around. He was also Flash. He got a new costume, which was a dark red, like metallic costume. But the book focused on Barry Allen. But Wally West was still running around from.
Th- then where did he go in between that and Doomsday Clock? Because the return of Wally West was such a big deal during the Rebirth and Doomsday Clock and all that stuff.
So Flashpoint happened,
Oh, he just disappeared during
and he
Flashpoint.
yeah he just
Yeah, that's right.
disappeared, and we got Wallace West, which was
Yeah,
the
right.
new Wally West.
The new
Yeah.
Kid Flash. Interesting. Okay. So I'm gonna have to look into this Death of the Flash because I don't remember. Is it good though? Is it worth checking out?
Oh, it's so awesome. And then when Wally comes back, what he does to one of the characters, Inertia. Oh my God, which you've probably read if you've read Jeff Johns' run, but
Yeah.
it's
Well, Inertia became Kid Flash.
well, he became a statue, is what he became.
Huh. I gotta read up on some Flash stuff. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's wicked, and it's a good curveball too. When you find out the death of the Flash and the details behind it, which I'm trying to be so vague about, but it's so hard.
I'm yeah. Is it pre-Infinite Crisis?
I think it's
Around the same time.
yeah around the same time. Yeah.
And like there was a huge conflict with Superboy going into Infinite Crisis. So did that take place like during that conflict when he really like bought into the Lex Luthor side of his psyche?
This was Superboy Prime.
Oh,
He
I'm thinking of
Connor.
Superboy Prime. Yeah, I'm thinking of Connor. Sorry.
Yeah, no, this is Superboy Prime from Earth Prime, and he comes face to face with Connor Kent for the first time in Smallville, and literally just like
Yeah, that's crazy.
destroys Smallville.
So this takes place during Infinite Crisis.
I think it is the lead up to Infinite Crisis. If it's
Okay,
not Infinite Crisis exactly, I don't know the 100% the book, but it's during that era, that
got
time.
you. So you know, I think I probably did read it. I just don't remember what exactly happened because I've read all that. We're gonna bring it up soon as one of my favorite eras in DC.
That is my favorite era. Yeah.
Same. Well, that's it for the questions. So we might as well get into the eras. And since we talked about the DC era, let's
Yeah.
start with this era, dude. Infinite Crisis. I mean, not the event itself. Yes, probably it might even be my favorite event, but the whole entire era in DC to this day, I think is like some of my absolute favorite comic stuff ever. Period. All time. Marvel, DC. It had so many amazing things, dude.
Yeah.
Like, what else tied into it? Jeff Johns' Green Lantern, top three comic run of all time for me. Infinite Crisis. You also had Batman, Grant Morrison. You had Damian Wayne coming to the picture.
Yep.
And everything about this era, like the art, the drama, the storytelling, Brother Eye, Maxwell Lord, so many amazing things going on in this era. So it's also one of your favorites. What do you think?
It is my favorite era. I think everything pre Flashpoint and just before the lead up into Infinite Crisis. So Jeff John, I just call it the Jeff Johns era of DC because
Seriously.
he was literally writing everything.
Yeah.
He was writing JSA. He was writing um, Flash. He was writing
Teen Titans.
Teen Titans, which is my favorite Teen Titans run. Like
It's so good.
Connor Kent is still my Superboy. Will always be my Superboy. Yeah, I mean that was my favorite era, and I feel like that is a time when DC, even though Marvel was really really good, DC was like the pick of the litter. Every single book was firing on all cylinders. The tie-ins actually mattered. It wasn't, just a one-off tie-in that had nothing to do with the story. Was just taking place during the time period. They all had to do with the story taking place, and they all had really high stakes too. I mean, you look at Infinite Crisis, how many people died or got drastically changed during that event. I mean, it's crazy stakes during that time, and I love it. It's so so good. Gosh.
Yeah, it's amazing. Even Wonder Woman had like probably my favorite Wonder Woman run. Greg Rucka
Yep.
was doing Wonder Woman, and that led, parts of that led into Infinite Crisis, Superman verse Wonder Woman, and what's his name, Maxwell Lord was in control of Superman, and she had to snap his neck, and that
Yep.
played into Infinite Crisis so much.
Yep.
So, like with the history of DC and Marvel, like there's this shift of writers' willingness to go darker with these stories, and I think it benefited comics so much. And I think that darker portrayal of these stories was really shined in the Infinite Crisis stuff because so much of that was revolved around her snapping Maxwell Lord's neck.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
it
And
just
the
took,
that entire like lead up, the sacrifice of or the storyline sacrifice, which is that entire
yeah,
Wonder Woman
Superman,
versus
Wonder Woman.
Superman, Brother Eye, all that stuff. There was so much tension between the big three of
Yes.
Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman, where the Justice League. I mean, it was a thing, but they really did not trust each other. Like even when after 1 year later, during I think it's Kurt Busiek's run. I think it is Kurt Busiek and Jeff Johns run, you really get to see, especially in the storyline Camelot Falls, where everybody thinks Superman is like in being mind controlled, and there's actually a point where the Justice League pull up on him and are ready to fight him because they think he's being mind controlled and he has to be put down because of the storyline of sacrifice. So there's just so much ripple throughout the DC universe after that event and that era in general.
I literally just bought Camelot Falls, and I've never read it, and I found it at this store for $8 in like pretty much new condition. So I'm about to read that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's
I'm
it's
looking
it's
forward to
pretty
it, like
good.
way
Yeah.
more. I heard it was good. A lot of people. I do a top 5 Superman comic post, and people are like, "What about Camelot Falls?" Quite a few people mentioned that name, so I found it at this bookstore and got it, and I was pretty excited. After you say that, I'm really excited. So I didn't know the timeline of it at all. I was just ready to read this for whatever it gave me. But
Yeah, it's right after I guess right after 52 is technically when that takes place, when Superman returns.
dude, speaking of that era, 52 was fantastic. Did you like that one?
Oh yeah. Oh
It's
yeah.
so good.
So good. So good.
Unreal. How did they take this DC universe without the Justice League or the Trinity and just make such an epic story? Like that was fantastic. I couldn't put it down.
And make these characters that no one cared about, maybe nobody heard about, like Montoya, and make them like classic characters now. There's Renee Montoya, the Question fans out there, and
Yeah,
Steele's storyline during that, where he, I
yeah.
mean, arguably becomes Superman, like handles Metropolis and everything like that. So, I mean, just incredible writing. But when you have such a powerhouse like group mind of Grant Morrison and Jeff Johns was on there.
Greg Rucka, Mark
Yeah, Greg
Wade,
Rucka.
they were all
Yeah,
on all cylinders firing.
they could write about a guy walking to the toilet and it's going to be amazing. Just
Right.
period. That's just what it is.
It also had some of the best Lex Luthor villain stuff. He was kind of giving people superpowers, and at one point, spoiler alert, at one point he shuts it down, and you got these
Mhm.
literal heroes falling from the sky. I'm pretty sure I remember them all just falling to their deaths. I mean, a lot of them anyway.
It's dark.
It's really dark. Black Adam had some of the best Black Adam moments in this one. I remember he goes and takes some guy and tears him in half in the right when someone's recording this for the news, and he's like, "Just don't come into Kahndaq." Like some excellent Black Adam stuff. Crazy stuff. What was like Animal Man and Starfire were stuck out in space,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah,
don't
the
remember how
Black
it
Adam
ends.
stuff is still like some of the most brutal and bloody storylines that take place go on during that storyline because Black Adam gets unleashed during that storyline there.
He does. I wouldn't mind a modern event where Black Adam is really attacking the justice or attacking something where the Justice League has to stop him.
Yeah.
He would need a couple more villains on his side, but I really love that character, and I don't think he's explored enough.
The best run to get the exploration of Black Adam is just JSA by Jeff Johns. He becomes a part of the team,
Yeah,
but
you
that
get
comes with all the trials and tribulations you'd expect, and it is it is again just high stakes. You don't know what to expect, and then there's some points where exactly what you were expecting happens, and it's pretty fun to explore there.
yeah, he kind of manipulates Adam, turns him to the dark side, and then
Yeah,
he has like Adam kill someone at some point.
Adam
Like,
Smasher. Yeah,
yeah, and then it goes into the Black Rain. My favorite part of the whole JSA was that Black Rain event,
yeah,
where it's just like 52, stay out of Kahndaq. I'm gonna kill everybody who tries to
yeah,
stop that from happening.
yeah. Yeah, he's an awesome villain. He needs a major focus. He needs to be like you said, the head of an event where
Yeah,
because I think he's the probably the villain that can really, I mean, power wise at least, take on the Justice League in all regards. I mean, he's a tactician. He has Superman level abilities, um, and he's also a ruler. So
yeah,
he has that kind of political stance,
and
or could maybe if he injects it more into our society. That would be a fun thing to explore too.
yeah, and he has magic, which makes that's weak to Superman, so he could actually potentially beat Superman.
Yep.
But during this event that we're creating in our minds right now, he could probably beat the crap out of Superman and then cause real problems because who's going to stop him after Superman? Shazam would be the one. You'd have to have a really awesome climactic Shazam versus Black Adam battle, and a really awesome climactic like beginning of the story where Black Adam just takes Superman out. One
Yeah,
hell of a way to start a story, and then an awesome climactic Shazam versus Black Adam at the end. So much to explore there. That'd be sick.
yeah, yeah. I'm
Let's
down for it. We gotta write DC.
Yeah, let's write DC comics. Let's become writers. That'd be sick. Otherwise, with DC, I really liked the Justice League side of New 52. I thought a lot of really cool stuff came out of that.
Yeah,
I liked the first few issues. I loved the intro, seeing them meet for the first time, a bunch of them fighting for the first time, and Jim Lee on art, seeing the Flash beat take a couple solid shots on Superman, Green Lantern, and Batman fighting, and then meeting Darkseid for the first time again. The beginning, and then the throwing of Atlantis storyline. So
great.
that's all the beginning stuff, and then the middle it gets a little whatever. But then you get into like Forever Evil and Darkseid War and what are they called? The Crime Syndicate.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, 52 Justice League, new 52 Justice League. I thought was really solid.
Yeah,
My, my
that
I
was
was gonna
the
say,
peak. I think Justice League and for me Batman and Robin. Those were the two
oh,
titles.
so good.
Yeah,
Yes, that doesn't get enough credit because everyone thinks Court of Owls, Death of the Family, Scott Snyder's Batman. I read through the whole thing recently, and it's not that good. There's just really amazing. Court of Owls is fantastic. Death of the Family is really good. I even really liked Zero Year.
hmm
But outside of those three things, that is not a great Batman run.
No, but the art. You got Greg Capullo
Yeah,
on
it's
art,
really
and
good art.
he's the definitive Batman artist at this point, I feel like. But yeah, I definitely would take Batman and Robin by Peter J. Tomasi during that era any day. I mean, the exploration of Damian and Batman, their relationship, the tension that's there. The only part that I kind of don't love is leading into the death of, I guess I should say spoilers too. Spoilers for anybody that didn't read that, the death of Robin, which takes place during that run also, which I don't exactly love, but then um the after effects I do like, because that's when we get introduced to the Hellbat armor
Yeah,
and,
that was sick.
him coming face to face with Darkseid and everything like that, which is awesome.
Absolutely. The death of Damien took place in Batman Incorporated, and I've never read that. I started it a long time ago and I didn't love it, so I never continued. But is Batman Incorporated anything to write home about?
If you like Batman and you want more Batman, go for it. It explores other Bat characters, a lot of the Bat family, but I think the peak of Batman Incorporated was pre Flashpoint when it first got established. I think that was during the Grant Morrison run,
Yeah.
and I think that is the best issues that I've read from the title at least. But I do hear that the Batman Incorporated title that either was coming out or still is coming out with Ghostmaker headlining it is supposedly really good, which I haven't read that.
I haven't read it either. Because like you probably don't know this, but I don't collect single issues. I don't read anything coming out currently. I wait for trade form to come out.
I don't either.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
just too expensive, and I'm not patient enough to wait a month or a week for the next chapter of a book. So I just wait for the trades. But it does bug me when I'm sitting there learning about like Hickman's Ultimate Spider-Man as it's coming out. Not learning about it spoiler wise, just like hearing about how good it is. But I'm just like, yeah, Volume One was sick, dude. I'm glad you're on issue 30 right now. I've
Yeah.
read the first six.
Yeah, I would probably say maybe once a month I'll pop into a comic book shop and pick up, you know, a
A couple
handful of
singles.
issues, but I'll walk out and it'll be like $70 for single
Yeah.
issues. And I'm like, dude, I could have got an omnibus for this
Yeah.
price. What am I doing? So that
Yeah.
then I just never pop in until a month later.
Yeah. But Batman and Robin by Tomasi is so freaking good. It's like one of the best Batman runs ever. That's the dynamic between Batman and Robin,
Yeah.
so good. See, like when Damian died, I loved getting the Hellbat armor. And on paper, I would have hated hearing about Batman go to Apocalypse to save his superpowered son or become superpowered. But it was so fun to read. Like, it was actually really fun to read
Yeah,
this
yeah.
Hellbat armor going through there. I just didn't like Damien having powers for a few issues after that. I'm like, come on, we don't need to do all that.
That's the part I didn't like also, but I did feel like the death was it was done pretty well. I really liked the desperation that they captured in Batman during that time.
Yeah.
So I think it has a solid beginning. The middle is where it kind of loses me, and then the end is where I have fun. But I do agree those issues afterwards where he has superpowers, I'm like, what is this? Like
Yeah.
this needs to just go away. But like we said, nothing's permanent in comic books, so
Right.
it's like,
Like, it's the Bat family. They're special because they don't have powers. Don't bring a damn superhero Bat family into this.
exactly.
That's why I was worried when Nightwing got powers during the Tom Taylor run. That was very short lived, luckily.
Yeah, yep, yep. Another great run.
Oh,
Incredible.
dude, it's one of my absolute favorites. Yeah, I'm on volume uh, five. So, that's been continuing for quite a while. Does it stay really solid? Does it stay good like after volume five? Because it's starting to dip a little bit. Volume four and five, it's like not as the volume one through three probably maybe top five comic book stuff of all time for me. But
Yep.
then it's dipping a little bit. How does it continue?
I think it content I it doesn't ever get to the point where it started. I'll say that. So if you're expecting the 10 out of 10 that you were getting during the first half, I wouldn't expect that.
Okay.
But I feel like it stays strong. I think is it one more volume I think to finish the run that we're waiting on. But yeah, I mean I think it stays pretty solid. I don't think it's horrible by any means. But the
Pl-
first volumes are the best. Don't
Oh,
expect it to get much better.
absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
But the artist is also not writing as many issues or drawing as many issues. So I does he like disappear? Is he going to stick around for more? The Redondo or
Yeah, Bruno Redondo.
yeah, does he continue drawing a lot of it, or does he
I
continue
think
dipping
he
away?
hops off on some issues. I mean, I don't 100% know off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure he hops off a decent amount of issues near the end portion. But I do think he ends the run with him,
Good.
which I'll find out the same time you do when we get that final trade.
Yeah. Because I also wait for paperback. I don't like, for some reason, I'm not getting hardcovers unless it's omnibus.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I have
I'm
to
a
wait even
hardcover
longer.
fiend.
I'm starting to like them way more because it's like they're more durable. They're just simply more durable. They're
They're
going to
more
last longer.
durable, and when you go on like websites, I mean, you can get them for like 60, $70, and I mean, you get everything that has to do with that run. So I mean, it hurts more initially, but it's a little bit more digestible when you look at the bigger picture of it.
Yeah. Well, as far as omnibus, 100%. I think that's probably the best bang for your buck.
Yeah.
But even trade 6 issue hardcovers, that's what I was talking about being more durable and the fact that I'm switching over more to being okay with that. But now I have such a big paperback collection. I want to keep it more uniform unless it is omnibus or a couple things never come out in paperback like the Batman One Bad Day stuff.
Yeah.
Deathstroke versus Batman. I've been waiting months and months to find a paperback copy of that. So I just sucked it up and bought a hardcover. But like they're just more durable. They're almost just better. I kind of want to convert, but 80% of my collection is paperback.
Yeah, I stayed strong for a really long time. I was like, unless it's a hardcover, I'm not getting it. And probably 3 months ago, I went back into trade paperbacks. So now I'm getting trade paperbacks, which I don't know what I'm doing. I have a problem.
It's hard, dude, because they come out differently. Some will come out in hardback only. Some will come out in paperback only. So it's just like, what are you gonna do? We gotta be less concerned with uniformity in collection. Just buy what we want to freaking buy.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when it comes to like the indie stuff, like that. Some of the indie stuff that's really good will never get anything other than a trade paperback. So like when I'm limiting myself to no trades, I'm missing all that stuff
Yeah,
because of some rule I've created in my head. So
yeah,
I just broke it. I was like, screw this, and started going mad.
for sure. As far as eras of DC, I guess that wraps it up. A couple events I'd like to mention though that are outside of this era. Well, actually, I would consider Final Crisis is pretty much a part of that same era. What did you think
Yeah,
of Final
yeah.
Crisis? Because there's big mixed reviews. You either love it or hate it, or maybe you have to read it twice to really appreciate it. So, how do you feel about Final Crisis? And like I asked you in TikTok, do you think it's overall better if you buy the omnibus or if you just have the event trade itself? Which the trade does collect, like the two Superman issues that you spoke about that are crucial to the story. Other than that, it's just the event, a couple Superman issues.
Yeah.
But is the omnibus you think better overall?
I th- I think it's better overall because Final Crisis is such a like wide lens event. Like you really, it's like death by a thousand cuts. Like there's just so many little pieces that are spread out through other titles that kind of culminate into the Final Crisis. So I would say the omnibus is favorable for that event, but hearing that the trade paperback does collect the most important tie-in, I would say that's a solid way to pick it up. I think you just need to decide which way you want to go as a reader. Like, do you want all of those breadcrumbs, no matter how confusing they're going to be, or do you just want the story and you're just going to walk away and say, "Oh, I'm done after that. I don't want any more details." Because Final Crisis, it's all one or the other. There's no like a little bit of dabbling. Like you gotta either figure it all out or just scratch the surface. It's
Yeah.
one or the other.
I think that's what separates the people who love it and who hate it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
because it is confusing. It is a really confusing. I don't know. I mean, I have read so much around it that I understood enough. So when I picked it up, and I was pretty hooked from the beginning because I think some new god got killed. So it was all of a sudden a murder mystery from the very beginning. So I was like, I mean, this is pretty
Yeah.
good so far. The art's good. Grant Morrison's just so weird. He always leaves me wanting more in some areas, but in other areas he like exceeds. He's such a complex writer that I think he's amazing. I think he at some points I think he could benefit from getting a little just for a couple scenes here and there getting a little more grounded, just giving us the simple satisfaction of maybe a certain feud, a certain fight, but it's also, you know, big and grand, and
Yeah.
it could be confusing. So great writer. I just think, don't be so smart every single page. Tone it down. Give us a little bit of a good
Yeah, a lot of people either think Morrison as a writer is 100% pretentious and he's, just being confusing for the sense of being confusing, or that Grant Morrison as a writer is so gifted that no one understands the intellect that is being wielded by that writer. So it's one or the other. You're not in between again. But with that being said, and I guess some kudos to Grant Morrison in that regard, um, I've never seen a writer that has more um, like we can get really, really highbrow, thought out, detail oriented stuff, or we can actually get some more chill, understandable stories. And I've never seen a writer that can do both so well, because you look at stories like We Three, which is really easily understood, a lot of fun. But then you look at Final Crisis, where it's like, what is going on? Like, I need to know every nugget of detail to even put this picture together. So he as a writer, just so many weapons, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. So kudos to him, but also he's a hit or miss writer in general.
Yeah, no, I agree. You've read his Animal Man?
Yes, yep.
I think that was spectacular. I
A
thought that
lot
was
of
so
people
good.
say that was before the mind that he did have was lost. So um, that's
Really?
that's the common consensus.
What a cool twist ending, though. I mean, that's so creative and wild and like just the weirdest, twistiest of endings after a really just solid superhero story. And
Yeah,
I think that's one of his most accessible at the same time being one of the most weird once you get to that twist ending.
yeah, yep. Definitely the most accessible. I think it has omnibuses, deluxe editions, trade paperbacks. I think it has like every type of format out there that you
Yeah.
can read it in.
And I mean accessible as far as storytelling, like
Oh,
as
okay.
with his such complex writing and other things. I feel like this one's super simple. I mean,
Yeah,
you
the
don't need to have a
simplest I've read is We Three. I don't know if you've read that before.
negative.
Yeah,
It's
that
indie.
is good.
It's indie, or is it DC or what?
DC, but it's Black Label, so it kind of toes the line there. But it has nothing to do with DC Universe. But it is
Okay.
so good, so emotional. Frank Quitely on art, which I know he's hit or miss for some people, but I
Miss.
love.
He's kind of a miss for me. You love him?
Oh, I love Frank Quitely. Oh no, come
Here's how
on.
I explain it. I absolutely love everything about his art except the characters' faces and bodies. The
Yeah,
setting is freaking awesome. It's like it's simple yet so detailed and complex while still being simple. I mean, just to the point where you're putting this on a page, this is something that's cinematic that not many other artists can achieve. You could easily interpret it. I don't mean complex in a way that like it's hard. You have to figure out what's going on. It's just so cinematic and so the setting is just on point. It's
yeah,
just the faces. I just feel like there's kind of some balloon faces going on, and that kind
yeah.
of takes me out of it. It's a small gripe, and I have grown to like it a lot more. So I don't hate him. I don't like him as much as the people who do love him. Like you said, it's hit or miss. I think I'm maybe a rare in the middle kind of guy with him.
Well, if it makes you feel better, We Three, the main characters are animals, so you don't have to see any any human faces. So
Oh, now that you say that, I feel like someone did just bring that up to me recently. It's about an animal thing. Anyway, yeah, no,
yeah,
I'm down. I think my favorite Grant Morrison writing though ever is the Batman stuff.
I think that's the common consensus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Grant Morrison's Batman. Has he written anything for Marvel? I don't think so,
Uh, n-
right?
Not anything that's coming to mind. Yeah, I don't think so. No, nothing that's coming to mind at least.
For sure.
That might be a good answer for Google there. I have no clue.
Yeah. So I guess with DC events, we're gonna finish that
Oh,
up.
actually, what? Geez, what am I thinking? New X-Men.
Oh my God, I was just thinking of his art there too. I mean, Frank Quitely's art, but yeah, that was new
Yeah,
X
New
Men.
X-Men.
I
Holy
was just
moly, that's like my
picturing,
favorite X-Men run. Oh,
right? We're both, his book is in our mind, and we're like, nope, he hasn't wrote Marvel, so. But
yeah,
yeah,
because when you're saying you don't like the faces, first thing that came to mind was New X-Men. I'm like, yeah, his faces in New X-Men are pretty hit or miss, and then we just circle around that and just leave it.
yeah, that's funny. Yeah, amazing. That's an amazing run.
Yeah, really good.
But otherwise, DC events outside of eras, I actually have a ton of events in the same damn era. Blackest Night, I already talked about Forever Evil, Dark Side War, Infinite Crisis, but Blackest Night, another amazing event that took place in that same era, just such a legendary era. But Blackest Night was amazing,
Yeah,
unique, different. Ivan Reis on art, spectacular, a culmination of all this Green Lantern stuff going on. So good. I would love to see that on the big screen.
which I didn't know that. Again, people didn't really like Blackest Night. I remember reading that and I was blown away. Again, high stakes, so many people dying, right? Like characters we weren't expecting dying, and staying dead. By the end of the event, um, just man. And then the tie-ins were so good to see so many heroes come to face with previously killed villains or previously killed love interest or sidekicks, whatever it may be. I mean, just so much fun, dark and
Very dark.
brutal. Man, I don't know how people don't like that story. I
Me
really don't.
neither. It was actually one of the first books I read. I read Blackest Night before I ever read the Green Lantern stuff leading up to it. So when I started reading Jeff Johns' Green Lantern and seeing how from the very beginning they were building to Blackest Night, and
Yeah,
as they're building all these new colors of rings, I've loved that aspect of this book. Um, Everything, the prophecy about this Blackest Night coming, it was so exciting. I'm almost happy I read the event before reading that whole series. But it's so, and it's very emotional. Like it starts with Barry and Hal Jordan, who are both returning characters after having disappeared from DC Comics for so long.
yep,
Them coming back, talking about the past, and now you got Batman's dead. A ton of people are dead, and just their relationship really started that event in such a solid emotional way. I love seeing those two characters together, and yeah, just so climactic towards the end. I absolutely love it. I think Necron would be an awesome villain to explore for James Gunn's DCU there.
yeah. And to see just the emotional spectrum, like during the Jeff Johns run, we get the vilification of the orange lanterns, the red lanterns, the yellow lanterns, and then when this new overpowered enemy comes up and everybody has to come together, villains or not, and you got yellow lanterns fighting side by side with green lanterns. You got um, Larfleeze somewhere in the middle there having to share his ring with Lex Luthor, and
Yeah,
I mean it was so epic, and it was such a great climax where we got the villains that we hated, and now we have to work side by side with them. Just so epic, man. So awesome.
tell me that story doesn't scream Game of Thrones to you. Like from the beginning, they're screaming about this death, like this army of undead coming. Everyone's fighting throughout, whether this is kingdoms or the colors of rings. Everyone's fighting throughout this whole thing, and then the culmination, everyone kind of has to come together to fight this undead army after all this political intrigue and backstabbing and side switching.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you heard like I guess the controversy behind Jeff Johns and stuff like that?
No.
So I guess they say that he hardcore uses reference of things in life, writings of Alan Moore, previous writings of other DC stories, familiar writings from the competitor Marvel. And I guess that's like a huge controversy that decides if people don't like Jeff Johns as if they don't like that. But I've had no issues with that. If that's the case, then keep doing it, man, because you're everything he writes is gold to me.
I love it. Yeah, no, I absolutely love it. Tell me what Marvel has done that's like Blackest Night. And really, when Blackest Night came out, unless he read the Game of Thrones novels, it's not like Game of Thrones is on HBO yet.
Yeah. Yeah, they're just saying like even like for example Doomsday Clock. Like they keep talking about the reason that he built off of um Watchmen is because he takes so many of Alan Moore's elements into his stories, like,
Mm-hmm.
a very dark and grim world and light at the end of the tunnel that's maybe not so bright, and um, characters that are morally gray and exploring them and the psyche behind them. But I was taught in high school, which is, I guess, a deep callback because I'm 30 years old, but my art teacher always told me the one of the things that to always keep in mind when thinking about art or artist, absorption of art, writing, whatever it may be, is to steal like an artist. And that's, I think, one of the skills that you need to have as a artist of any sort is, looking at someone's piece of paper and, changing the words up a little bit and making it match your story and your world that you're building.
Well, absolutely. And it's kind of inevitable. There's
Yeah.
probably not a single brand new story that we haven't already heard in a different light, you know?
Yeah. And then there's that
So,
too. Like Jeff Johns read all these stories just like we did. Of course he's going to be a little bit influenced. Like
yeah.
there's no way.
And that's totally fine with me. I think he's probably, if not my, maybe even my single favorite, he's 100% a top three writer for comics. He's built so much universe. He's done so much for DC. It's absolutely amazing. Like, I mean, his eras are our favorites. You know, the Infinite Crisis era.
Yep.
That's our favorite. His Green Lanterns. That's like probably my single favorite comic story of all time. And by the way, I love what he did with Doomsday Clock. I don't know how that worked out with the studios and the heads, and if that was more on him or them, but the way he brought back the original traditional DC, I thought was beautiful. I'm not saying Doomsday Clock itself was like the best ever. I still would like it. I'm just saying how he decided to say this is why the New 52 took out these concepts. This is why these concepts are coming back. I thought that was genius. I thought the absence of hope and love from the New 52 stuff was a perfect tailor, like a perfect concept to bring back to the DC, along with its traditions and its concepts and the characters and the relationships. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I would say Jeff Johns is my favorite writer, 100%. And I also would agree with you. Green Lantern by Jeff Johns is my favorite comic book run ever,
That's sick. Hell yeah.
from anything that I've read. So whatever he's doing, I mean, he ain't missing. So keep doing it. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it's so good. That's such a fun comic.
Yeah.
Last two DC events. All by Tom Taylor. Beast World, very recent, and Deceased. I just read Beast World like a week ago, and I thought it was so good. I really liked it, but I've heard mixed reception online, so I'm curious what you think. But then Deceased. Deceased falls into possibly a top five comic book series of all time. I absolutely love Deceased. It made me. I really love Tom Taylor. I feel like he's just beginning. I'm excited to see how he does what Jeff Johns did for the next 10 years. I think he'll be a part of DC, and I'm really excited to see where that goes because he tells really, really solid stories. Deceased is amazing. What did you think of Beast World?
Beast World, I, I, I feel I fall into the same category that most people fall into, which is that was during a time where there were so many events. Like you had uh, Lazarus Planet, Dark Crisis, and Beast World. I think they all came out in like 3 months. It was back to back, and I really did fall into event fatigue where it was just I was just so tired of the grandiose scope storyline that um, really wasn't building up characters as much, but was more about like the cinematic and climactic nature of the event. So I didn't like it.
For
I
sure.
do like the focus on the Titans. I liked that Tom Taylor was fully finally trying to get that torch passed to the Titans from the Justice League. It really felt like that. Um, but it came out at a bad time. It was just too much going on at DC during that time.
For sure. That it's probably maybe why I liked it because like I said, I'm not current. So when I read that, I was skipping between like Wolfman's Teen Titans, random things, Avengers Twilight. Because I'm not current, so I wasn't reading. I haven't even heard of Lazarus Planet. I did read Dark Crisis. I didn't buy it, but I read it online because I loved the premise.
Yeah,
Didn't love Dark Crisis. I loved the art though. The art was
yeah,
spectacular.
yeah,
But you gave Deathstroke powers. I hated that. I hated Deathstroke's role as much as I love Deathstroke. I just hated his role in that. I thought that was a little weird. There was a couple amazing scenes like Nightwing fighting Deathstroke, but I'm pulled out of the current events. So when I read Beast World, I really liked it because it really followed Tom Taylor's Titans Volume One, and I
yeah.
really loved that. I'm just a sucker for Tom Taylor at this point, but Beast World it landed for me. What's Lazarus Planet about?
Lazarus Planet is it's almost a tie-in build up from Mark Waid's Batman versus Robin run and Joshua Williamson's Robin run, and it has to do with essentially um, a how can I avoid spoilers? Pretty much the entire DC universe getting powers in some form or fashion, and
I already don't like it. That
yeah,
sounds
and what they have to deal with, and that was the event right after Dark Crisis. Like Dark Crisis ended, I think we had maybe 2 weeks, and then we got hit with Lazarus Planet, and then I think it was maybe like 3 weeks after Lazarus Planet, uh, um, Beast World came out, and it was like, holy moly, like back to back to back. But I mean, I do agree with you. I do commend on the focus on Tom Taylor's Titans. I mean, he really, really built up those characters to the point where we thought for a while that they were going to be for sure the next Justice League, where they were going to be on the forefront. And Dick Grayson was supposed to be, the forefront, which I feel like he's not as much, but um, as at least as much as we thought he was going to be. But it was pretty cool still to see the Titans on the like main character level there.
for sure. I you should. I wonder if you ever reread it. You should just hit me up on TikTok. Let me know if you think you might actually like it. Maybe it is not that good. I don't know.
I always reread stuff that because I
Same.
one of the parts of this hobby that's so fascinating is like as we grow, how like stuff maybe we hated we now like, or stuff that we like we now hate. So
It's
I always
bizarre.
reread multiple times. I mean, maybe not as in depth as the first time because I'm like, oh, this massive speech bubble that's this entire page that isn't needed. But yeah, I'd love to see how my tastes change. But I'll hit you up when I read it again for sure.
Will do. I also love rereading comics. I think it's. I mean, just like watching a movie. I think sometimes you rewatch a movie and if it's really a good movie, you like it more the second time around. You see how the pieces were falling in place as they intended, but you didn't know where it was going the first time. The second time, you know where it's going, so you could appreciate the seeds that were planted and all
Yep.
that.
Yeah, I agree.
I really only keep the ones I like. After a couple reads, if I don't like it, I'm just gonna sell it on eBay. But and the ones I do like and that I keep in my collection, I've probably read everything I have at least 3 times.
Yeah, I'm not a crazy completionist either. Like, I think there may be maybe like three omnis that I have that I don't love, but I'm keeping for like a scene or
Yeah,
a character development arc that I really like or something
right.
like that.
Right. Yeah. So if I collect like every volume of a series, I don't. keep them all. If I don't like it, I get rid of it. So I'll have like volume 1, 3, 6. You know, it goes on. Omnibus is tough because
Yeah.
if I only like 20% of it, I might sell it on eBay. But even if I like 30, 40%, I'm like, I might as well just keep this. But also not a completionist. I don't need all the volumes of every series, and I
No.
just keep what I like.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's get out of DC and go to Marvel eras and events. As far as eras go, well, first of all, I don't know if I consider Hickman's Avengers era. I don't know if that's more of an era because all the other titles outside of Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers, they were all pretty weak, the individual titles. So I don't want to consider it an era, really. It's almost just like the Hickman run is almost isolated from the rest of it. But I don't know if you'd consider that an era or how you think of that, but the Hickman Avengers, New Avengers, Infinity, going up to Secret Wars, some of the best comics ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I would consider that an era. I
Okay.
because he really put a lot of those building blocks in place, not as obviously in some of his other runs, but you could tell he was working towards something, especially during his Fantastic Four run. Um,
True.
but yeah, no, the that's a pretty solid era, and I feel like a lot of people like Hickman's era. I'm kind of hit or miss on Hickman, which I feel like I'm in the minority there. Most people love him as a writer.
Well, I don't love all of his stuff. I didn't like his Ultimate Universe stuff. His Ultimate, it's called the Ultimates, maybe.
Yeah,
He also wrote Thor, Hawkeye, and I had the omnibus, didn't love it. So I don't know if I love Hickman that much. All I know is I absolutely love his Avengers stuff and everything leading up to Infinity, and then leading up to Secret Wars. The whole time runs out leading up to Secret Wars. I also love his current Ultimate Spider-Man. I've only read volume 1.
yeah.
So those two things. So I don't know if I'm a huge Hickman fan, but I absolutely love that Avengers stuff, his Spider-Man stuff.
Did you like his Secret Warriors? Did you read that at all?
I haven't read it yet.
Yeah,
What do you think about it?
I think it's pretty solid. I think I think the best work that he did at Marvel was Secret Wars and his Fantastic Four run. Those are
Oh
the
yeah,
two that I loved.
his Fantastic Four is incredible.
Yeah, especially that first half. Like I think of everything as omnibuses. So like whatever's in the first volume, that is like easily probably one of my top 10 favorite Marvel runs. Like just so family oriented, so highbrow but simplistic at the same time. Obviously, a huge major death that, just shakes the core of the Fantastic Four. And then into the Future Foundation, which is like a whole nother era of Fantastic Four. Just so cool. And really, really ambitious to do that because obviously the Fantastic Four, it's important to have four. And, when you get rid of one of those characters, that's an ambitious move with that franchise.
Yeah, but then temporarily replace him with Spider-Man, which is
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
Which I loved the concept, but he didn't do much as Spider-Man. The story, like the concept was there, he was there, but they didn't go out and do these missions, and then you didn't really get to see Spider-Man operate in action alongside the team, which I thought they could have done more with that.
I agree. Yeah, it was cool to see him pay homage to his friend in that way, but he uh, he had really big shoes to fill, and he didn't exactly fill them.
Yeah. Did Omnibus 1 cover all the way up until the Celestials and the Galactus conflict?
Um, yeah,
Or
yes,
yes.
I think so. Yeah, yep,
Nice. So that's actually maybe I've only read the contents of Omnibus 1. I'm waiting to read. I collected it in complete collection format, so they have probably like 20 issues or so, pretty kind of thick paperbacks. I've only just not read volume 4, so I don't know how it ends. Does the ending do anything to lead to Secret Wars? Like the very end of it might have been the second half of the Omnibus 2 or something like that, but
I think the core of the lead up to Secret Wars is a lot of that stuff explored in the first half. The
okay, the
bridge
bridge.
and the
Yeah.
the coalition of reeds and all that jazz. That's the real foundation and meat and potatoes going into like what is the multiverse and how it kind of works. So that's the most important part.
For sure. And you didn't love his Avengers stuff?
I liked it, but I felt I don't know when I think of Avengers, I kind of just want like the toy box emptied out and all of the good guys and bad guys to kind of fight each other. Like for me,
It
peak
was complex.
Avengers is like Bendis era. That's like the perfect, perfect Avengers run in my personal taste at least.
Perfect segue because that was on my list too. I think that era of Marvel Comics is probably overall era wise my absolute favorite. The
Yeah.
difference of Hickman's era, where I love it so much, his Avengers, New Avengers, but all the other titles were pretty bad. Whether it was, I don't know if Jason Aaron's Thor was a part of that era. It's very separate. Regardless, it's very separate, but that was really good. But I mean, like his Captain America stuff, his Iron Man stuff, nothing was that great. It's just the Hickman, Fantastic Four, Avengers, blah, blah, blah. But the Bendis stuff literally gave us the coolest era across multiple titles, multiple writers, like the way he weaved in and out of events like House of M, Civil War, Secret Invasion, Siege, and how each event was so crucial to understanding the next event. The ramifications of every event changed the whole universe, and which perfectly led into the next event. It was genius. And like with Civil War, then he comes out with his new Avengers, and all of a sudden you get to see outside of Civil War what's really happening now that Tony Stark is head of Shield, chasing down these new Avengers. They're kind of the rebels, Doctor Strange, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Spider Man at that point, Jessica Jones, and like he's chasing them down. Doctor Strange is he's like their big hitter at this point because when they go
Yeah.
look for the new Avengers and Doctor Strange like does this thing where Tony can't see them and he's searching around the Sanctum Sanctorum for them and he like I know you're here and he gives a little speech talking to them like I might not be able to see you but listen up, this is how it has to be. And just all these things, he's capturing heroes, the new Avengers go break these heroes out of capture, like the whole entire universe. And I mean then it leads to Secret Wars and then the Dark Avengers. That
Yeah.
was an incredible era, right up there with like Jeff Johns' Infinite Crisis era.
Yeah, that's my favorite era. I usually describe it as the Civil War era of Marvel, but I guess the Bendis era is probably more accurate because he was on top of his game during that point. But you had, Ed Brubaker on Captain America.
Yes.
You
Jeff
had,
Lemire on Thunderbolts. Or no,
yep,
that was Warren Ellis. I'm sorry.
yeah,
That was Warren
Warren
Ellis.
Ellis was during that, and with Matt Mark or
Matt Fraction?
no Scorpion as Venom.
Oh, yes.
Matt Gargan, is it? Yeah,
Yeah,
Matt
yeah.
Gargan.
Matt Gargan.
Yeah, best Venom ever. Like just so brutal and just horrible. But yeah, and then Civil War. Like I feel like people sleep on that, but the ripples of that event felt through all of Marvel was crazy. It's
Yeah.
huge shakeup when it came to teams and relationships and organizations like Shield, like you touched on with Tony Stark being the director of Shield. I mean, just really, really impactful event that changed Marvel for the future for a long, long, long time after that.
100%. I feel like that's what events should do. It shouldn't just be a fun event and we put it in the past and move on. Like an event like that, if you really wrote it correctly, should change
Yeah,
the whole universe, and that's exactly what that did.
yeah, yeah. And you also have an event that's kind of thought provoking too. I mean, that's why it's one of my favorite events. Is I do think most people kind of agree with Captain America in that event. But I mean, it's not like Iron Man doesn't have some valid points to his
Sure.
argument
Yeah.
there too.
100%.
Yeah, so it's like, man, this is some serious business when both sides are kind of making some valid points and some, especially after what happens in the beginning of Civil War, with the new warriors and the explosion that takes place there. But Yeah, really, really powerful event.
It's just such good storytelling.
Yeah.
I talk about multiple titles being affected, but even like Amazing Spider-Man, that the Civil War stuff really benefited that. And if you visit that, you really get to see Tony Stark's motivations and his reason for doing what he does. And it doesn't make you might not side with him, but it makes you understand where he's coming from. Like those Spider-Man issues, really, really solid. And then Young Avengers was affected a huge by that. Young Avengers had a great stuff coming out of that.
Yep. Yep.
Post Civil War, Spider Man again, he reveals his identity. Kingpin calls a hit. They shoot Aunt May. And then you get the most rageful, vengeful Spider Man you've ever seen, and he whoops people's ass trying to find who called the hit. Finds out it's Kingpin, whoops Kingpin's ass. Like, that was one of the most satisfying Spider Man comics ever. Just a complete savage badass. And I mean, that all came from this event.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why Straczynski's run will always be my favorite Spider-Man run, is just because it's during that era and you get to see Spider-Man during this new era of his life of being an adult, becoming a teacher, continuing his relationship with Mary Jane. But I do think it gets overshadowed by the end of that run. But I mean,
Yeah.
everything that happens during that run is such incredible character development. It's the first time we see Spider-Man get dark, like you said, the entire Back in Black. Um,
So good.
yeah, and then the Fallen Sun issues what after Captain America's death, when you get to see the ripples of that death and how it affects every Avengers character pretty much. I mean, just incredible writing, and again, it made it feel that much more powerful, especially with that death that takes place at the end there.
Yeah, and even before we get to Civil War stuff, that Spider-Man Straczynski's, by the way, also probably my single favorite long Spider-Man run. Starts with Morlun. Morlun is a really cool villain, and they were throwing down for like 6 issues straight, just destroying each other.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah,
I got to see this dude on the big screen too. Morlun is a really cool villain. Leads into Spider Verse too eventually. But yeah, the Straczynski run is awesome. He does really good writing when he's on point. His Thor run, that's another character title that was really done so well because of Civil War. Thor comes back. He realizes that Tony Stark is shutting all these heroes down, and he whoops Iron Man's ass. And Iron Man's like, "What?
yeah,
We fought before. Like, why are you? Well, you've changed." And Thor's like, "No, I haven't changed. I'm just not holding back because I think you're
yeah,
an asshole right now." So sick, and that was Straczynski too.
yeah. Or even the scene where Iron Man comes after Pete or Peter Parker, and Peter Parker kind of whoops his ass too. I mean, he
Yeah,
just leaves him webbed up in an alley and skates out of town after that. But I mean, just Straczynski's run, I think, is the most like, it scratches all the itches. Like, it has such intense action, has the ripples of Civil War. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the 9/11 issues in there too,
yep,
which is crazy
really emotional.
powerful.
Yeah,
So just, I mean, top 10 run by Spider-Man, and people hate on it all the time just because of One More Day.
because of One
Um,
More Day, and also that weird volume where Norman Osborn apparently raped Gwen Stacy.
yeah, Sins Past. Yep.
Really weird, really strange. I mean,
Yep.
I was into the story because it was so strange. I didn't hate it. It's a very dark and weird concept. I don't know if it was rape. I don't know if I want to use the big word there. Was it rape? Because he
I'm pretty sure it's more like a fling.
manipulated.
Like,
Fling, yeah. Yeah, I
Gwen
don't want
Gwen
to
is
throw.
kind of into it.
Yeah, really weird, really weird. But I'm
Yeah.
not going to say I wasn't flipping pages. Like if I didn't hate it because I was flipping pages. This is some weird drama, so that didn't take me out of it. It was just really weird and really dark, whatever the case may be, whether it was manipulation or
Well, a lot of people say that I mean, Straczynski didn't write those issues. That was fully, like, One More Day and Sins Past was just more of a Joe
studio.
Quesada intervening, who was the editor during that time, and intervening and kind of forcing Straczynski's hand, supposedly. So I don't even know how much we can blame Straczynski for that. And even if I was Straczynski, as much hate as those stories have, I would be blaming Joe Quesada anyway. So, I mean,
Yeah,
who knows?
for sure. But regardless, I think it's the best Spider-Man run as far as like a full long running run for sure.
I agree. Yep.
But then we didn't even talk about Dark Avengers. This leads to Thunderbolts. The Warren Ellis Thunderbolts, I think, is absolutely incredible. Norman Osborn front of the line there, and then that leads to Dark Avengers, and I think that is absolutely incredible. Like that's all
Yep.
really good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. You get to see everybody um, create their own persona, which it's not really Wolverine, but it's Wolverine. It's not really Hawkeye. But it's Dark Avengers version of Hawkeye, and then it all leads into the major event, of
Siege, yeah,
Siege, which is again just brutal, just so brutal. Which is a great event. I love that event so much.
yeah. Siege is really awesome. I mean, Sentry was a big standout there, and I really wonder what he's going to do in the MCU, getting introduced in a Thunderbolts movie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But him tearing the God of War in half. Have you noticed a pattern with Sentry tearing people in half or getting torn in half? Because he tore Carnage in half,
Yep.
and that's beginning of this same era we're talking about. He tears Carnage in half, tears Eris, the God of War, in half, and then later, not in the same era, gets torn in half by Null. It's like a theme with Sentry.
Yeah, yeah. That was. I feel like it caught a lot of people off guard because Ares is obviously a god, but I also thought Ares was really underpowered, so I didn't think it hit as hard, but it was brutal. I mean, you see all of his guts get,
Gut, spine.
yeah, fly out, and the scene before where his eyes open real wide and he's just covered in blood, and then he rips them in half. It's like, God, yeah, Sentry ain't playing.
Yeah, for sure. But that Thunderbolts run is one of my absolute favorites, along with that Dark Avengers stuff. It's so good, and
Yeah, yeah,
it's like we're saying, it's just these events that Bendis wrote really set the stage for amazing storytelling.
yeah, and putting Norman Osborn in which again, it's kind of a morally gray role, but a hero role. More of a not full villain. Doing things for his own advantage, but maybe some of them kind of make sense, type of thing. Still following the laws,
Well,
post Hero Registration Act. So it was
the
another thought provoking era with Norman where we were like, okay, he's doing some bad stuff, but is he good? Is he
yeah.
bad? What's going on here?
Well, I thought the beautifully written part about that was he was super like a good person in front of the camera. And they wrote it so well from when the camera shuts off, he's terrible,
Yeah,
pure villain. But in front of the public, pure hero. They wrote
yeah.
that so well and they did it so good, whether it was Thunderbolts or Dark Avengers. Beautifully written.
And then it leaves you as the reader wondering, what's the real Norman? Like is that good side in front of the camera the real Norman, and he's just doing what he has to do behind the scenes, or what? But yeah, that's my favorite era of Thunderbolts. I know a lot of people
Me
like
too.
the original run, where the big reveal of who the Thunderbolts are and everything. But I don't know, that brutality and just them going after all of these, B, C list heroes, mostly at least. I
So
mean, it was
brutally.
pretty wicked, yeah.
And Bullseye was such a huge standout. Bullseye was a savage in those.
Yeah. Horrible dude. God, he's
Yeah.
so bad.
The unpowered person was the one. He was like their nuclear deterrent. When they got into trouble, he would come in and kill the guy they were after. Like easy. He was
Yep.
written so badass.
Yeah.
And then I think it actually, to be honest, gave me the single greatest, not greatest Green Goblin story, but the greatest uh, representation of Green Goblin. He was savage when Moonstone took away Norman Osborn's drugs, and then he became the full-on Green Goblin. He was the scariest Green Goblin I've ever seen. He was terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's an amazing era. I might even put that whole entire era above the Infinite Crisis Jeff Johns era just because of the side titles that benefited so greatly from it.
Yeah. Yeah, they're both, I think if I'm holding them up side by side, like because during that time period I was collecting singles, and I definitely was more invested in the DC world. But post reread of both those eras, they you could flip a coin on which one I
Yeah,
think's better. I mean, they're
for sure.
both top notch, peak comic books, and I know we'll probably get all kinds of hate for that because peak comic books was the 80s when Claremont was writing X-Men and all that stuff, but that was peak comic books to me.
80s?
No, the Infinite Crisis era
Okay.
and the Civil War era.
Which
Um,
they were both happening at the same time ish, right? Oh,
yep,
dude.
yep.
That was
And Civil War
early.
era Marvel was during Annihilation, the entire
Oh my god.
cosmic side going on simultaneously as Civil War.
I wasn't even thinking of that because Nova came back to Earth and Civil War was already in its. Tony Stark was already head of S.H.I.E.L.D., and that was right after Annihilation. I totally forgot about that. And Annihilation is one of my absolute favorite events,
Yep.
like, ever. It's so amazing.
Yeah, and those were two stories that weren't even affecting each other, but they were two major, massive events that are critically acclaimed, and Marvel was just kicking out stories 24/7 for both of them. Just
Oh my god.
incredible work over there.
Yeah, Annihilation is incredible. Thanos, Galactus, everything about that Nova. Oh, by the way, let me throw this at you, MCU. You know, we never saw Thanos destroy Xandar on screen. We started Infinity War, he already had that stone. Xandar is the planet that was destroyed in Annihilation. Nova, Richard Rider was a character that was like the only survivor of this destroyed planet. He inherited all the Nova powers, became Nova, and goes along from there. Why didn't we see that on screen? And don't you think, I don't care when you do it, but that's an excellent flashback to go back, actually showing Thanos take Xandar and give us an origin for Nova right there. It's not Annihilation, it's not Annihilus, but they do that in the movies. They take canon from comics and change it for the movies. But
Yeah.
why didn't we ever see it on screen? Are they saving this for a flashback to introduce Nova? Don't you think that would fit really well?
I think it would definitely fit well, and I think because we've already seen the Nova Corps, all that entire um, faction and everything, and just to see him absorb all that power and just become Nova Prime like right away, and that's just his character just beginning.
Yeah.
I think that would be a perfect jumping on point for Nova into the MCU.
And such a sick, if you say you do a Nova movie or a Nova series, that is, you couldn't do a better attention grabber. There's zero. I mean, Josh Brolin, I guess, would have to come back. You might not even have to show Thanos, just show his ship, which is very recognizable, coming to Nova, destroying everything, getting the stone, which makes you think you might want Josh Brolin back. But you could do a shot from the back of Thanos, CGI, getting the stone. Boom, Xandar is destroyed. He leaves. Boom, Nova is born, just like the comics.
Yeah.
Minus, I mean, the change in villains. But that would be sick, and I'm still waiting for it because why didn't we see it on screen yet?
And having all these characters that are on par or close to the same level of powerhouse as Nova, with we now have two Captain, well, I guess three Marvels, but Monica
Yeah.
Rambeau, and Carol Danvers. We obviously have Thor. Adam Warlock got introduced, which he's a massive powerhouse. So Nova, I think, would fit in perfectly, especially right around the time that we're now going to get Sentry, who is the powerhouse. So I mean, there's no better time than present to introduce that character.
Man, hopefully I can get you on the show again so we can get into the movie side of things because I
Yeah,
think we could break so much of that stuff down too. Because I want to say more, but we got to stick to the topics, I guess. I guess
yeah,
for now. So that would be really exciting. But I guess the last era I have for Marvel is, and it literally comes out of the same era. This is the House of M era, Civil War, whatever. But out of House of M, you got the whole Hope Summers era.
yep,
And this is, we're talking just purely X Men comics now. But the Hope Summers, so House of M happened, and you're aware of all that stuff, and then all the mutants are gone except for a couple hundred. But the first mutant is born, like after this annihilation of mutants, and that's Hope Summers. This era brought about some excellent X-Men story comics. I wonder what you think about it. But you had like X-Force, two different X-Force runs. One by, Mike Choi. I don't know if he was the artist or the writer. And then you go into the X-Force with Rick Remender writing separately, but then you had Messiah Complex, Messiah War, X-Men Second Coming, Scott Summers authorizing a team of assassins behind everyone's back.
Yeah.
Like, so badass. He's like a dark Captain America.
Yeah. Yeah.
Eventually, this leads into Avengers vs. X-Men, but I mean, that isn't probably my favorite X-Men era period.
Yeah. And that's another trilogy there. House of M, which directly leads into Avengers Sanction, which then leads directly into AVX. That's another three, three-way punch as far as events go, and pretty
But
impactful stories.
if that's three right there, where then you have to include Messiah Complex and Messiah War and Second Coming because it's all the same story.
Yep.
It's like a
Yep.
5 story trilogy. Well, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, yeah. X-Men, I mean, X-Men has always been like its entire separate side of Marvel, but I think during the Civil War, Bendis era, whatever we want to coin it, I think that was a good time where it felt like they were pretty involved in the entire universe
Yeah.
of Marvel overall. Still mainly affecting mutants, but still they were playing a role in the bigger picture, which we've never really seen before. They were usually off doing their own thing, but during this era, they actually played a big part, which was awesome.
Bendis wrote House of M too, didn't he?
Yeah,
Unreal.
it was Bendis and it was a two creators that went together.
Well, that I mean keeps going to our point of the Bendis era because House of M, very much more of an X-Men side of things, still bled into the other stories a lot. Do you remember the New Avengers story when all the House of M powers that disappeared from mutants ended up getting sucked into one dude in Alaska?
No, I don't remember
It
that.
was a it was a shorter story, and it was before Civil War, right after Breakout, when everyone came back together as a team after that like prison. Everyone broke out of the prison. Sentry was in there. They got Sentry. That's when Sentry tore Carnage in half.
Yeah, yeah.
It was like right after that, before Civil War. But all the powers of the House of M mutants went into one person in Alaska, and this dude is now like freaking out, running around the planet, and the Avengers have to stop him, but he's very overpowered. And I thought that was a ton of fun right there too.
Yeah, I need to revisit that because I don't remember that. I'm kind of vaguely remember or like remembering in the deep pits of my brain a panel where they're in like a ice cave, but so maybe that's the story that you're referencing there, and I'm just finding a little nugget of detail where I saw it at some point or read it at some point.
Tra- Imagine he almost feels like Silver Surfer the way he's traveling across the world, and I feel like his body is covered in some kind of at least black or silver color. He doesn't have a surfboard, but really short. It was like no one ever talks about it. I just thought it was really cool, and like I said, it's easy to track down because it's post House of M, pre Civil War, post Avengers Breakout, which is the arc where after disassembled they come back together during that prison break. So it's right around there.
It's probably in the House of M companion. Now that I'm thinking about it.
And do you have the New Avengers by Bendis like omnibuses, or how do you collect those?
No, it hasn't been reprinted yet.
Gotcha.
Um, I
I can
want
see
it
the
to be.
disappointment.
I'm so disappointed, but I
It is
refuse to pay
soon.
for out of print books. I just can't do it. My pockets won't allow me.
No, yeah, that was a game when I was a new comic book reader. I thought I had to get my hands on these $100 6 issue trade paperbacks because they would disappear forever. I made that mistake multiple times, and I don't do that anymore. That's for damn sure.
Yeah,
'Cause they
yeah,
all get,
screw that.
they all get reprinted or they all drop in price or something. You don't ever need to overpay for that stuff.
Yeah, Marvel's really good too, especially with their Ultimate collections where they like collect was it like 50 issues or 40 issues or something in a fat trade paperback. I mean,
Yeah,
that arguably is the best way to collect, or those Ultimate collections are.
yeah. I'm almost positive the New Avengers omnibus is being reprinted for the Bendis side of things.
Better be.
Yeah. But all right, that sums it up for real quick before we get out of here. A couple favorite events outside of this era. I mean, literally most of these events that we love are in this same era.
Yeah.
But after before we wrap it up, a couple of good events for you.
Um, as far as like, does it have to be like a massive scale event, like affecting all of Marvel, or can it be like
If
a
if you can,
three-part series little event for like a
hell yeah. I mean, if you can call it an event, even if it's a small event.
oh Devil's Reign? We already mentioned that.
Yep,
I'm gonna go with that.
love it.
Um, that's top tier. Chip Zdarsky, who is on top of his game when it comes to comic books at this point. Um,
Chichetto on art is
yeah,
incredible.
Marco Cicchetto on art there. Um, Black Vortex is a X-Men and Guardians of the Galaxy event.
Is that when they put Jean Grey on trial for the crimes she might commit in the future?
Yes, yeah,
That one's good. That is
yep.
good.
I like that. Uh, I Empire's another event, but I feel like it starts strong but ends kind of weak, so I'm gonna not recommend that. Those the first two that I recommended are pretty solid, but now I gotta come up with some DC events. Um, good lord. Can we count Tower of Babel? I
Hell
mean,
yeah.
that's more of a JLA story, but it's kind of
Yeah.
big picture.
I love Tower of Babel. It's definitely one of my absolute favorites. That's when Mark Wade took over. It's not Morrison, is it?
Yeah, yep, yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah, great story there. Not an event, but an Elseworld story, which is New Frontier by Darwin Cook. I think everybody needs to read that.
Interesting. I haven't read it yet. I've heard so many good things, but what took me out of it is the cover art looks way too cartoony for my taste. Is that the artist for the whole story?
Yeah, yeah. So you might not like it.
Yeah, but it's just art. I'm not like the art has to be good for the story to be good. So why is the
Yeah,
story so good?
it's a story that focuses on Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, and the Flash during the um I guess passing of the mantle from like the golden age, silver age of the DC universe to the Justice League as we know them now. And it focuses on all of them becoming the heroes that we know and love. Barry Allen is the Flash during it, but he's very small time when it comes to what he does. Um, Green Lantern becomes Green Lantern in that story, so you get to see like a kind of reimagining of his origin. Same thing with Martian Manhunter, who gets no focus at all. He needs to get way more books about that character.
I agree so much.
Yeah, such a great character. Um, and then I got instead of an event, a run that I highly recommend, which is Justice League by Scott Snyder, which I think is a super slept on
I
Justice
agree.
League run. Incredible art by Jorge Jimenez through most of that run, and has probably my favorite Superman panel ever collected in there. Um, you get a interesting villain, which is the World Forger, which plays into like, kind of that
Death metal
new
and stuff.
gods
Oh,
realm of
okay.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah, so really good stuff there.
I think that's also very slept on. I don't hear anything about it. And what really sold it to me, I liked most of it. What really sold it to me was that maybe even a single issue when the Joker takes Lex Luthor's plans for the Doom Justice or Doom Society. What do they call themselves nowadays?
Legion of Doom.
Legion of Doom.
Yeah,
And he takes Lex Luthor's plans and completely flips it on his head. Like everything Lex Luthor was planning, the Joker comes in there and destroys everything. And I thought
yeah,
that was so sick.
yeah.
It was
There's a storyline in there where it really explores how Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman are the center of the DC universe, and they get like super amped and take on a empowered Lex Luthor, which
I didn't
staying
like the
vague for spoiler reasons.
didn't like the powered Lex Luthor. Yeah, that bled into death metal and
Y-
stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, Dark Knight's metal. Yeah, that
Yeah, yeah,
little
yeah.
event there. Yeah, I'm surprised that you really don't like your
Powered.
non super powered characters getting superpowers.
Yeah, I think it's the worst. That's why they're special
Yeah,
without their
that's
powers.
fair. There's another one too, which we were just talking about this, which is another story that people always sleep on, and it's called Justice. Have you read that before?
Oh, by Alex Ross. Mark Wade wrote it, and Alex Ross. Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, Alex Ross. I'm pretty sure he gets help as far as paneling goes, but that entire storyline again, very similar to that Scott Snyder Justice League run, Justice League versus Legion of Doom type of thing. Has one of the best like Wonder Woman character arcs during that entire little story there, which pretty sure that's Elseworld. Um, I guess I'm just recommending a bunch of Elseworld DC titles.
No, I like Justice. I don't remember anything about it, but I kept it in my collection, so that tells me I like it. I'll have to read it. I remember the art's amazing. I don't remember the story. I know it's Brainiac. I know it's a very Legion of Doom oriented story.
Yeah, yeah, and you get to see your favorite heroes take on their favorite villains, or some villains that maybe aren't their villains at all. And you get a lot of respect to all of the Justice League. Like it's not a Justice League story where Superman's the main focus, like we get, or Batman's the main focus. Like it seriously focuses on everybody evenly, which is great.
Yeah, it feels like a Justice League cartoon, like full on Justice League story.
Yeah, yep,
Yeah, and it
yep,
doesn't. It's not shackled by continuity or previous stories or future stories. It's just very isolated.
yep. And it's let free. Yep.
Yeah. I hear your dog back there too. I heard my dog whining, then I heard your dog.
They always do this. They don't even come up that often. And then as soon as I start live streaming, they come up here and start chasing their tails.
What
Drives me
kind of dog?
nuts.
What kind of dog is it?
So I have three. He's literally about to chase his tail right now. Um, I have a wiener dog. The one that's up here is a pit bull hound, and
Nice.
then I have a Brittany Spaniel, and they're all nuts.
Yeah. I got a pit bull Shar mix. It's like the coolest dog I've ever had.
Oh wow!
And then
Oh
Doberman, and then some kind of shepherd. We rescued all of them, so I don't really. They don't. None of them have real paperwork, but they were gonna have a shitty life if we didn't take them in. So one of them's like a shepherd dog, and she's really smart and really cool. The pit bull Shar is freaking amazing. They all have really good recall. I could take them out without a leash, and
yeah,
well, except in San Diego, it's like the dog Nazis, the most dog Naziest place I've ever been in my life. If you have a dog without a leash, the police are going to be shooting you. No, that was dramatic, but they hate dogs off leash here.
yeah. That's another reason we moved. We had a we lived when we lived in Maryland. We had the head of the board that was like trying to get the county that we lived in to come after us because we broke some type of fine print rule where it was like you can only have three dogs if all three of them are like below 20 pounds or something like that. And it's super fine print. Like when they sent it to us, it was like, where is it? And we
That's
found it. We are like, are you kidding, man?
that's so annoying. Okay, so you want more dogs in the shelter because I have three happy dogs here. You want me to just send one to the shelter? Yeah, okay. Real
Yeah.
nice of you, county.
Well, we did the off leash thing too, and that I think that ruffled some feathers.
Yeah, I really believe in that though. I don't want them to just be domesticated like servants of humanity. I want them to be off leash. I want them to run around and be free and have like fun, be an animal.
Yeah,
So,
I agree, 100%.
yeah. Anyway, off track, but dogs are the best.
Yeah,
I did my DC events, but outside of the Bendis era, my Marvel events, Avengers vs X Men, which is kind of almost tied to that event. I do really like that event, and actually, well, I was going to say Axis. I don't like that event, but I loved the build up to Axis. Uncanny Avengers by Rick Remender, which took place right after Avengers vs X Men, and they are trying to put a team together of X-Men and Avengers. But that run is very slept on, in my opinion. I think that run is absolutely incredible. The twists and the turns, the storytelling. Rick Remender's a gangster.
Yeah.
There's so many things that happen that you don't expect. There's time travel. It's very dark. It's all over the place in the best way possible, leading to Axis, which sucked. But
Yeah.
Uncanny Avengers by Rick Remender is fantastic. And King in Black, I really liked King in Black. I think it's better than Absolute Carnage, but Donny Cates did such a good job with all that. Absolute Carnage, King in Black, the Venom run. So, out of those three, Uncanny Avengers leading up to Access, Avengers vs. X-Men, King in Black, what are your thoughts on those?
Kingdom Black was pretty solid. I think it kept it fresh because we had Venom as like the main hero, which was so out of the box thinking as far as comic books in general go. At least Marvel. Um, Axis, I feel like it has some diamonds in the rough, but overall it's not the strongest. Um, I did kind of like, Sabretooth and how he kind of joined the Wolverine family that was going on during then because we had the death of Wolverine, which was kind of an event, somewhat.
Yeah,
Um, and I also liked Superior Iron Man, just become a total dick. That was great.
that was Tom Taylor also. Great writer. Yeah, I
Oh,
like
was it?
Superior. Yeah,
Wow, I didn't know that.
yeah,
Huh.
he's solid. That was a really good Iron Man. Little, it was short, but it was good.
I always thought he started on at
Deceased.
DC on Earth too, so maybe he started on
Oh
that
yeah, New Fifty
beforehand.
Two Earth too. He took up on like volume 4 or 3. Was that
Yeah.
good?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Really good.
But the first couple volumes were not good. It was written by someone else, and then he picks up volume 3 or something. That's where I need to start.
Yeah, I enjoy the first two volumes. I actually enjoy that entire run. I would love to see that in Omnibus. The only thing I didn't like was the ending, which was Convergence. That was just a hot mess express. They had no idea what they were doing with that. That was horrible.
Yeah, I want to pick it up where Tom Taylor started.
Yeah. I think you're right on the money. I really do think it's volume 3.
Yeah, hell yeah. Avengers vs X Men. Did you like it? Because I've heard people sometimes don't like this one.
I really like Avengers versus
Nice.
X-Men.
Yeah.
I think I'm in the minority, which I think you like it too, so you might be in the minority there too. But yeah, again, just high stakes, man. I mean, you got relationships changing forever when it comes to um, characters that are friendly with each other. Avengers and X-Men characters. You get to see the confliction of Wolverine being on, essentially both those teams. You get to see, I think that's really where we got to see the breadcrumbs of Magneto kind of having his more heroic twist that we started seeing applied there. Um, and then the ending where we get, the Phoenix Force 5 and Namor versus Wakanda. Um, Cyclops lose his frickin' mind, and it stays lost until Secret Wars when something takes place in that event. Yeah, I mean, just crazy, crazy stakes in that. I like events with high stakes. I think that's what I like the most of any event.
100%. That's why when they come out with event after event after event, the stakes do not feel high.
Yeah, because we get an event, nobody dies, and then another event comes out, and you're expecting the same thing. Nobody's gonna die, nothing's gonna happen, and I like events, as morbid as it sounds, where people die. Where the hierarchy of DC or Marvel gets shaked up a bit. I really like that.
Yeah, and the beginning of the Wakanda versus Namor feud starts there, and that bleeds in heavily into the Hickman Avengers and New Avengers run. And
Yep.
I thought that
Yep.
was such a cool little feud in the background of that whole thing. Amidst incursions and multiversal threats, Namor and Black Panther still hate each other, and they still
Yeah.
fight.
That's actually my favorite element of Hickman's run is the tension that you keep feeling between so many characters. You got Namor and Black Panther. That tension is just always kind of present. Iron Man and Captain America tension is always kind of present there, and it's that's one of my favorite parts of that run is just the character work on when it comes to the relationships of the characters.
For sure. Okay, post. I want to edit this out, but time's running big. Do you want to spend 10 minutes talking about DCU and the on-screen side of things, or do you want to get out of here? Because it's been long, which means we've had good conversation, but it's totally up to you, and I won't be. I won't be. My feelings won't be hurt if
I
you want to
mean,
end it.
I have no kids, so I mean, if you're good, I'm good. But if you have to end it because you have to take care of your kids, go
They're
do that.
sleeping. They're sleeping. All right, cool.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine.
Hell yeah. All right, let's move out of comics for a second and talk about anything really. We got a lot of stuff: Star Wars, Marvel, DC. Like, first of all, what do you think of their? How are they doing right now as far as their on-screen portrayals go? What do you think of the future, especially like the DCU is a big one that's going to be starting soon. I'm guessing you agree that Marvel and Star Wars has been pretty lackluster for the past few years.
Yeah.
DCU is pretty much absent for the past couple years, but they're going to start fresh. So, what's going on with all the nerd stuff coming up on screen? How you feeling about anything?
James Gunn's universe for DC, pumped, absolutely excited.
Yes.
Cannot wait to see a big blue Boy Scout Superman. I am like my blood is pumping for that. Marvel, I haven't hated Marvel as much as other people have. I think it's been hit or miss, but I've overall still enjoyed it. But I think I'll enjoy anything superhero on the big screen. I'm just that's my bias speaking. I'm just aware of it at that point. But I do think this is a lot weaker than the Infinity Saga, and I would love for them to wrap up the multiverse stuff. I'm kind of sick of it. I don't want the big cosmic, picture. We already got that with Thanos. I would love something more grounded. Um, with that being said, I'm pumped for Captain America because that is grounded. That is going to be super just Marvel and, political, everything you kind of want from a Captain America story. Sam finally, hopefully, getting some wind under his wings. Um, and then Star Wars, again, kind of hit or miss. Um, I liked Andor. I liked the Boba Fett stuff. I haven't watched the most recent show that came out, which I think it's like Skeleton Crew or something like that. I
Not
think
out.
it
Not
has.
out yet, but it's soon.
Is the first episode out?
I don't think so.
I
I think it's
I thought I
December.
saw an ad, so that's the only reason I said that.
All right. Do you think it looks good, Skeleton Crew?
Um,
Yeah, I could already
I
tell. I feel the same.
yeah, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but I would be lying if I said I really care about like the bounty hunters and rebels and that side of things. Like I like Jedi's versus Siths. Like
Me too.
maybe that's such a brain dead way of thinking of it, but that's what I like. I like that lore. I like that world or that side of the world. And that's why I'm kind of in the minority saying that I kind of liked Alkalite. And I know that's major hot take probably because it got canceled, but I really kind of enjoyed it because it was just Jedi's fighting constantly with their lightsabers.
I will say, episode four. I didn't love the Acolyte, but episode four of the Acolyte was like the coolest episode of Star Wars I've seen.
Yeah.
That was so sick. I mean, he was. You got introduced to all these Jedi, and then this Sith character just kills most of them. I mean, that was really cool. The whole episode was him tearing them down.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't love the whole show. I am really disappointed with Star Wars lately. Marvel a
Yeah.
little disappointed. I think like you feel it's not anywhere close to the Infinity Saga, and I mean, I don't hate it. At the same time, I'm like, what the hell are you doing? What's going on? But you're aware of the CEO shakeup. The original CEO from the Infinity Saga is back.
Yeah.
And for the past 4 or 5 years, someone else has been in charge. I think that has directly manifested into the quality of the shows. So I have high hopes still. I'm very optimistic about the future of Marvel. So I'm good with all that. I'm really curious about the Hulk stuff in Captain America. You hear about like Betty Ross coming back, the leader coming back, and you have Red Hulk in there. But like literally, the Betty Ross, the character, the actress is coming back. The actual actor from Edward Norton's Incredible Hulk is coming back, and you obviously have Red Hulk going into this movie. Like, what are they doing with these Hulk characters in a Captain America movie?
Yeah, yeah. It is a little misplaced because I actually really like the comic storyline that this is pulled from, the Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness Hulk run, and but it felt, you know, well placed because it was the Hulk versus Red Hulk. But here we have Captain America, who does not have the super soldier serum, taking on this new Hulk that we're being introduced to. So I am interested how they're going to explore that, and if we're going to get answers, or if they're going to, do the Marvel thing and say, hey, if you want answers, watch
Yeah,
Thunderbolt Ross, the TV show that comes on in 2 years, or something like that. I hope we get a full fledged beginning, middle, and end with the climax mixed somewhere in there, because I don't want the clickbaity aspect that Marvel keeps kind of doing with the fan service and the oh, watch this next episode, or this character returns. Like, I want it all. Just give me the whole story.
yeah. I'm just really curious if they're going towards World War Hulk. There's been rumors. Why else would you put a bunch of Hulk characters into Captain America? The problem is with the CEO shakeup. Most of this film was filmed under that hierarchy, under the Chapek era, before Bob Iger came back. Now they did do reshoots, so I'm worried it is clickbaity just for that reason, because that whole era was clickbaity. Here's a character. We don't have a story, but here's a character. Here's
Yeah.
another character with their series. Here's a movie, and like there was no story, but here's a bunch of characters. I'm worried that that's the same thing going on with this Hulk stuff in Captain America 4. Do you think there's a slight chance that Bruce Banner might be in this movie?
Uh, I'm gonna lean towards no. Now, I
Yeah.
don't 100% know, because it's like Marvel's caught me off guard quite a bit. But especially during this era where it's like, somebody that doesn't even have to do with the character dropped into the story. But um, yeah, I'm gonna lean towards no. That will be my final answer.
Well, we got a comment in the live section from Danny from LA. So this will be a fun one. Batfleck versus Pat Bat, or I'd like to call it Battinson. Who wins?
Batfleck.
100%. Dude's
Yeah,
a savage.
yeah,
He's the Justice League Batman compared to the detective grounded Batman.
yep. And maybe a hot take again, but that's my favorite interpretation of Batman. I thought that was what I loved. Was
I'm
that
so with you.
Batfleck? Yeah,
It's not like they gave us the best movie. I think the Batman with Pattinson is better than any Ben Affleck stuff. I think The Dark Knight is the best still. As far as a portrayal of Batman, Ben Affleck I think did the best.
yeah. And I think my favorite, like, cinematic modern Batman scene is that scene in Batman versus Superman, when we first get introduced to Batman with the cop. He's like walking into like an abandoned building or something with a flashlight, and he shines up and sees Batman, and obviously it's just this brick house of a dude in the corner of the room, and he scrambles away like some type of horrific creature and climbs out of the room, and I'm like, that is Batman. Like,
Yes,
just a brick house dude that is scary as hell. That is how I like my Batman.
1,000%. Yeah, best interpretation just doesn't have the best movies, which is very unfortunate,
Yeah.
especially because he was supposed to direct the Batman movie for the DCEU. We got like concept art of him and Deathstroke fighting. Deathstroke was going to be the main villain. You saw that tease at the end of Justice League. That movie is probably my single most wanted movie that will never get created. That movie
Yeah.
might have been amazing.
Where are you at with the bring back the Scott Snyder universe? Are you in that
No, no, no,
bandwagon or no?
no, 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 no. I'm
Okay.
way, way too excited for James Gunn's DCU. I think it's very appropriate to do a fresh start at the beginning, even if he's not doing a ton of origin stories. Whatever he's got cooking, I believe in so much because he's a gigantic comic book fan. He was a part of Marvel when they were firing at all cylinders. He was a part of Marvel for peak Marvel, and at the end of it, he gave us Guardians 3, which showed me that he could make it not only like funny and exciting and adventurous, but also deep and emotional and darker. And after Guardians 3, I've never been so sure of him being able to create an amazing comic book universe on screen. So
Yeah.
I don't care I don't care about anything else except letting this dude cook from the beginning and letting it go for a long time. I think the DCU will dethrone Marvel. I think it has the potential to reach the Infinity Saga. I couldn't be more excited, to be completely honest. I think it's the best thing ever.
Okay, so safe space here. Speaking of Guardians 3, did you cry as like a baby like I did during that movie, or is that just me?
Dude, I'm not a crier, and I cried during this movie. I totally
Dude, I
did.
was a mess.
I actually did. Like, I couldn't tell you the last time I don't know. I think I cried during My Dog Skip when I was a kid, and I cried during that movie. But I'm not a crier. But I'm sitting there in the theater, and I actually cried during this movie. And a lot of that had to do with animal cruelty, which I'm a
Yeah.
softie for that. But it was so emotional. Peter's Chris Pratt's reactions to Rocket dying, that was really, really well shot, well done. And yeah, I mean, that was the only time I've cried in a movie theater for a long time. And
Yeah, also not a crier. I think the only other movie I cried to was Marley and Me, which is another
another dog
dog
situation.
dog movie, and again, animal cruelty. Something about animals and kids and young animals, like in Guardians of the Galaxy. Me and my wife, we went to like this kind of swanky movie theater where we could eat and watch the movie, and it was like such a like messy, just ugly cry. We couldn't even eat. I mean, we were like snotting everywhere. It was horrible. And now I'm like afraid to watch it again because I don't want to cry again.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I cried in like the first scene when I saw this super terrified raccoon getting like scared. All the other raccoons behind him are cowering in the corner while this one stands its ground as a hand is coming to grab him, and I immediately kind of like teared up a little bit. So that just started the whole
Yeah.
journey of an emotional movie. I was like, God damn, don't hurt this animal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he hits those heartstrings, and I hope he takes that heart and injects that kind of same thing. Maybe not as like emotional or sad, but that same emotional quality into Superman, because I think he's like almost the opposite side of that spectrum, where we should walk out of that movie theater like ready to take off and start flying into the sky.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I really think he's gonna nail it. I think the DC is in such good hands, dude.
Yeah, I agree. And what's your verdict on the Superman suit?
I'm cool with it. I like the Superman suit. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
not too picky with the aesthetic. Like I'm not. I don't really care what it looks like unless it's like really really weird. I really like the logo. I don't love the red underpants. I'd rather him not have the underpants. It's classic as hell. It's maybe even nostalgic, but at the same time, I wouldn't put it on myself if I was Superman. These red undies. So I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah, you could do without that, but it's not gonna change the movie at all.
Yeah. It would be cool to apply what they did with Marvel, where we get like a progression of suits, like this is his first like golden age suit where he has underwear, and then he progresses more into like maybe a more armor like suit like we saw with New 52. I think that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I really like the new 52 suit. Did you like the Man of Steel?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I kind of get it. I get it now. It took me a long time to understand, but it's, I guess, not representative of the Superman character. But at the same time, I thought that arc was building towards a very hopeful, very accurate Superman character. By the time we got to the Justice League, he was that character. And I kind of liked that they started with the darker, more like I'm not really sure about the world character. I think that built up to who he was really well. So I'm kind of talking myself out of believing that side of things because I think they were doing a good job with that. Sure, Man of Steel itself wasn't perfectly Superman, but it's an arc. I mean, it took 3 movies: Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Justice League. By the end of the third movie, he was the very hopeful Superman.
Yeah, and you're also seeing a man become Superman for the first time. Like, he doesn't know what he's doing, you know? I mean,
Yeah,
he doesn't know to be hopeful. He doesn't know the impact he's going to have as a hero. Like, I mean, it's literally a guy that was like on an oil rig running from the world, all of a sudden putting on his costume and trying to save it, you know? And I think the character progression that we would have saw even more so post Justice League. I think it would have fit perfectly. I think it would have showed why Superman's so hopeful and
yeah,
how he went from that dark, humble beginnings into the embodiment of hope that we all know.
100%. It would have made his hopefulness more impactful.
Yes. Yep.
I like that. I like that. All right, we can't go forever. One more question.
Okay.
What is your most anticipated DCU project? If it's Superman, then what's your second?
I would probably say Lanterns.
Okay.
I'm pretty excited to see Jon Stewart on the big screen, and to see that lore. You know, I mean,
Same.
they're gonna build up the Green Lantern Corps and multiple lanterns, not just Hal. And I think that's gonna be really, really cool to see, and especially if we get a progression of them not being heroes, just like ring bearers, to then becoming the Green Lantern and the superhero that we see eventually join the Justice League.
Yeah, it's just strange. Well, so Hal Jordan's not going to be a huge part of the future because we know he's old.
Yep.
We already got a casting. He's old. He's the veteran that's going to teach John Stewart. It sounds like John Stewart will be like the Justice League Green Lantern. So that's interesting. It makes me sad. I would like to see the whole Jeff Johns thing with like seeing multiple rings being born, the mythological side of just that whole side. It doesn't seem like they're going that route, which is a huge bummer. But another thing that's totally not a bummer is that this show is supposed to give us hints into the big bad. Like James Gunn himself said that they're going to be uncovering a mystery that does reveal some kind of darkness in the DCU that's going to play into the overall story. You heard about that?
I would be interested to see if the big bad is going to be Parallax. That would
Yeah,
be really, really ambitious, but cool at the same time. I'd love to see that.
ambitious, but it doesn't feel like a Justice League level threat to me. You know, if it's the big bad of the whole chapter one,
I mean, he was the face of Zero Hour. You know, I mean, he was mostly the big bad as far as that went, and he
it's
was
true.
he was the big bad of the entire. I mean, took out the entire Green Lantern Corps,
He
killed them.
could. You're right. No, he totally could be. Yeah, you gotta amp him up a little bit, but not that much. Because you're
Yeah,
right. He creates his own army with his ring. Like
yeah,
I could
yep,
do it. I also think Necron could be. If it's Green Lanterns uncovering this mystery, is it Necron? Or I don't think it would be the anti-life equation because we just did that with Snyder.
yeah,
So I'm really, really curious to see where that goes. But I think my most favorite after Superman, because honestly, Superman's probably it's got to be my most excited because it's starting the whole thing off,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you're really going to see where the direction is going after this movie, and it's Superman. Like that's probably the most. But then Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing for me, Alan Moore's Swamp Thing comic book is one of my absolute favorite all time. I freaking love it so much. So I'm really excited to see what they do with that. I think that'll be one of the rated R projects. He said it'll be dark. He said it'll do a nice origin for the character. I love origin stories. But I'm really excited to see that play out on the big screen. And, other than that, the Batman movie, of course. Damian Wayne as Robin. That's really exciting.
That I think that might be the project I'm the most hesitant about.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, because that's a lot of foundation to build there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, no matter what he does with Batman, that's going to be critiqued the hardest because it's
Yep.
Batman. But he's approaching it with a very big scope. So I mean, we can't introduce Damien and not talk about where he's from and how that happened. So
Yeah.
hopefully that gets set in place.
So I think Ra's al Ghul will be the main villain. And you didn't do a comic accurate Ra's al Ghul with Christopher Nolan's trilogy. He was a white dude.
Yeah,
Ra's al Ghul is Middle Eastern. You could do a completely different Ra's al Ghul, and you kind of have to. If you don't do that, where did Damien come from? I mean, maybe he's a side villain, but you kind of got to do the Talia and the Ra's al Ghul. But then, like, where's the other Robins? Is Red Hood already Red Hood? Is Nightwing already Nightwing? Where's
yep.
is Tim? Maybe Tim Drake is currently the Robin in this movie, but that gives me pause, and it also tells me like maybe. Well, how am I gonna put this? Like, the one thing I like about it is that it'll be Batman and Robin pretty much, where that's going to separate it from all the previous Batman movies. So you have a chance to be unique and different and not redo Batman stories we've seen before, because the last Batman and Robin on the big screen was pretty bad. I loved it as a kid, but I watch it now and it's like, okay,
Yeah,
that's our
yeah,
standards have risen significantly. So I'm glad it's Batman and Robin. I think it'll be cool. And really, I just trust the dude. I trust whatever plan he's got cooking. I think it's going to be awesome, but I really need some answers. I need some questions answered.
yeah, yeah. I feel like he just backed himself into a corner with the Batman movie, and that's why I think I'm the most nervous because Damien has a lot of explanation. So
Yeah,
let's hope we get it, and it's not just like, oh, he's just Robin.
yeah,
I don't want that. I don't want the Spider-Man effect where it's like, oh, well, we've already seen Spider-Man's origin. We're not going to see Batman's, or we're not going to see Robin's, or I want all those little nuggets. At least James Gunn's envisioned version of those nuggets, at least.
yeah. And I really want the full Red Hood story. I want the whole, but you kind of skipped over Jason Todd already,
Yeah,
potentially, unless you do flashbacks. The Red Hood story is one of my favorites in fiction,
yeah,
so I really want that. But we will see how it goes. I'd love to talk more, but we got to cut it. It's almost 3 hours. I really appreciate you coming on here.
yeah.
Why So Sidious at Why So Sidious Pod, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all the good stuff. Follow Illuminerdy. He's at Fellow Nerd on TikTok, Illuminerdy on YouTube. So give him a follow. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time. I'm going to try to get this guy back on the show. Bye. Yeah, dude, that's the longest episode we've ever done, but that just means we were having a good time.
I get really long-winded about comics, so that might have been partially my fault there.
No, I love it. I would do it more. I would, but I don't know how my other two co-hosts would feel about, because we have like a certain time. We have 6 hours of content we could put out a month, or we got to pay more. So I can't
Oh,
just,
okay.
yeah. So I can't just do a 4 hour episode. But that was a lot of fun. I would love to have you back on, and maybe we could just focus on, because there's so much more I wanted to talk about with DCU and Marvel, and especially Star Wars. We barely even touched on. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, we
whatever,
didn't even
whatever.
touch on like Star Wars comics and stuff like that. Like, I don't know if you read Star Wars
Yes,
comics or
100%. Yeah.
because I think you read novels too. Have you touched on High Republic novels yet? Or
I started the first one, and I didn't love it. It was kind of slow, but should I keep going? Is it good?
I've read maybe so I don't read, it's audiobook, but I've read maybe I want to say like 10 minutes into it. I kind of liked it, but I've heard it's like the best book. Like Charles Soule, because I think that's who writes that first one is Charles Soule.
Yeah, and he wrote the best Vader comic in my opinion.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Thank you. You need to come on my show because everybody was getting on me saying that Kieran Gillen's Darth Vader's better, and I 100% disagree.
I've always leaned towards